everybody is comfortable where you're seated, right? What time are we looking at? It's going... of a creative future. It's nice to be able to see some familiar spaces and observing all protocol. It's wonderful to welcome you warmly amongst all of our guests and speakers today. So we were joking earlier saying that this morning is kind of going to grow and run through like the whirlwind that AI and immersive technologies tends to be. So we've got a high energy program and everything is going to be really full. My name is Grace Meadows and I'm going to be keeping time. And I think that's the enviable position I'm in, as well as introducing on stage to welcome you all and welcome you to the first National AI Dialogue in the creative sector. I think there's something to be said about being the first, and I think sometimes that can hold a lot of apprehension. I'm noticing some feedback. I'm hoping not hearing that online, and I'm sure the tech team will be sorting it out. There seems to be an echo. Can everyone hear me okay? Fantastic. So there's something to be said about the first. So the first National AI Dialogue in Creative Sector. So whilst that can be quite overwhelming, I think what's really interesting about today and its format and with everybody joining us online, of course, and I'd like to direct you all and to the attention to join in on our Soda stream for those that like to comment online and for all of the listeners on YouTube as well. So we joined the South African Cultural Observatory and the Fak'ugesi African Digital Innovation Festival in a first of its kind discussion and workshop on AI. And what we're really here to talk about is the impact on the creative and cultural industries. This, of course, is brought to you by GIZ and the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. So, as I mentioned, observing all protocol, you are warmly welcomed into today's session. And I'm going to call up Untitled Chapter from the South African Cultural Observatory to start our welcome and address to join us on stage. Can we please get a round of applause? The mic is yours.
Thank you, Madeleine. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Untitled Chapter, as graciously introduced by Madeleine. I'm sure some, if not many of you, are familiar with my face by now. And as a result of that, I am not going to go over the mandate of SACO, what we do, but in short, I do have to mention that our South African government, since 2011, has invested in ensuring that the creative economy is a centerpiece of policy. And I think it's today's discussion, along with many others that we've been having over the last 8 years, that continue to feed into the policy discussions that are shaping the creative economy in South Africa. Mine is to welcome you all here today. I'm hoping that we're all going to have fun whilst we discuss and debate on the impact of AI in our creative sector. And before I step down, because Amy is on standby, who's going to take us through why we're here today, I thought I should mention a number of people or organizations that have been involved in making today's success and to say a word of thanks. Firstly, I'd like to say a word of thanks to the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, of which the South African Cultural Observatory is a project that is hosted at the Nelson Mandela University where I work. And I'd like to say thank you to Fak'ugesi, the Digital Innovation Festival, for the communications, for the venue and the project support, and for making sure that today we are here today. GIZ, where is Victoria and Kanda? Thank you so much for the significant sponsorship and support in ensuring that we have this workshop in this format today. To everyone that has been involved in making today a success, including the speakers that are going to be participating in today's discussions, all of you, I'd like to thank you, and the SACO team that has worked tirelessly in making sure that everything works and today's program is a success. With those few words, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say welcome, take off your blazers, take off your shoes, and have fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Nati. I mean, usually Usually at this venture, I'd like to say switch your cell phones off so you can really get into the mix. But seeing that we're streaming online with our online audience, that will be great. Thanks very much for the welcome, Unati. So I think I'm going to have an avatar called Madeline. But my name is Grace, and again, it's a pleasure to moderate. When Amy called me asking if I was available to be here this morning, I did say to her, Amy, I know nothing about AI, and she warmly comforted me. Crossing over to Berlin, we have Amy Shelver, who's the SACO Senior Researcher and Strategist and Head of Partnerships, to really frame why we are here. Amy.
Greetings, colleagues, and I hope you can hear me. I am really sorry that I can't be there in person to engage with you and to speak with you on this exciting topic, but rest assured I'm here for the whole experience, and I hope I don't have an echo because I can go on. But anyway, we are really excited to lead this debate now on the impact of AI on the creative industries. It's critical. It's such a well-timed debate, and we're very happy that the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture recognized the need for some solid research on this topic. So my role really is just to briefly let everyone know that this is actually a research workshop and a dialogue where we need your inputs and insights into how AI is shaping your creative workflows, how you feel about the dawn of the AI revolution. We want to hear your insights. We want you to engage. We want you to, for the online participants, to help us with our polls, to be part of our Miro board SWOT analysis on the impact of AI on the CCIs. Because we are living amid a revolution, and sometimes we don't recognize that as it's happening around us, and it's hypercritical that we actually start working towards a national common vision for how we deal with AI. And that's part of the reason that we're here today. And so far, the South African Cultural Observatory has done a couple of key interventions in research toward a paper that will be released at some time in April, based on the insights that we've garnered from a national survey that we ran, and we had more than 150 participants take part in that. It was a dipstick survey asking questions around how AI has impacted creative workflows, how people feel about AI, what AI tools people are using today, and then some questions about negative impacts of AI and the need for policy interventions. We've also conducted a series of interviews, and we're building some amazing case studies, because amid the fear, there is also great excitement, and it's one of the wonders of being at the cusp of this kind of unimaginable future that we're going to live into. And we want you to please give us your insights, share information, and really participate as actively as you can, knowing that this is all in the service of research, that then the South African government, and indeed all of us as stakeholders and part of the creative industry, can shape policy debates in a world where we can't even imagine the policy that we need to navigate a whole new era. So everything is exciting. There are fears, but we are here and we have to talk about it, and we have to think of a common vision. We have to think about raising national awareness. We have to think about training, and we have to think about tools to enable the uptake of AI, because the cat is out of the bag. So on that note, thank you very much for joining, and I look forward to watching all of your responses online and from in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. And also reinforcing the research objective. The cat is indeed out of the bag. And really quickly, I'd like to organize and call up Eduardo Cachucho, really from Fak'ugesi Innovation Digital Festival, for a word of thanks and greeting. Do you want to use the mic, Eduardo?
Okay, I'm going to go rogue.
Yes.
So welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming through. We're very happy to have everyone at a discussion like this. When the GIZ and SACO contacted us to run this, we were very happy to hold this conversation. Fak'ugesi is an African Digital Innovation Festival, and I think what's so exciting, I mean, people call it like USP, like what's our unique selling point, and I think the selling point of Fak'ugesi as a festival is really unique globally. There is no other festival that works from this point of view, that you cannot engage innovation in Africa unless it's being done from an African cultural perspective. Otherwise, it's just not hitting the mark and it's not connecting with people. So I think for us, it's very important to hold a conversation about the impact of AI on the cultural sector. We're perfectly positioned to do that. We are also located in the Tshimologong Precinct, which is the WITS incubator. And basically, this brings together all different parts of the tech industry, from software to hardware, and then to what we call digital content. So Fak'ugesi is part of the Digital Content Hub, which includes an animation academy, a gaming hub, the Fak'ugesi Festival, Digital Lab Africa. So we're very excited to be at the intersection of these discussions today. I think we're going to hear some very interesting points of views in a few moments. So welcome to Tshimologong and Fak'ugesi.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eduardo. You know, even walking into the precinct, you can almost feel the energy of collaborative creative exercises. Thank you for that. And as mentioned by Onati, none of this could happen without the significant support from GIZ. Victoria, can I call you up to have a warm word of welcome? The mic is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I'm very happy to see you all in the room here today. My name is Victoria Gillum. I've been in the great position to have coordinated our partnerships and activities for our global project on cultural and creative industries here in South Africa for the past 5 years. It's a cross-regional project that has not only been implemented in South Africa, but in 6 countries simultaneously. So in Kenya and Senegal, and in Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq as well, on behalf of the German federal government and in partnership with the Goethe Institute in all of the 6 countries. And maybe just as a brief background why we're here and how we came to support. Our project's aim is to support prospects for jobs and incomes for creative entrepreneurs and also to the development of ecosystems in which the creative entrepreneurs work. And especially for the ecosystem development, we've partnered with SACO and Fak'ugesi for a long time, for the past 5 years by now. And in South Africa especially, we focus on supporting the digital creative industries, so especially the animation and gaming sectors, which is why we developed an amazing collaboration with the Fak'ugesi Digital Innovation Festival, also together with the WITS School of Arts, to really understand the sector in more detail. What are the needs, what are the opportunities, and where are the challenges, also especially in the value chain. So to really develop that greater understanding for our partners to act on, but also for ourselves to really understand where are the entry points in order to support the sector's development. And so research is important. It's important to have a sound understanding of the potentials, but also the needs for support. And I think South Africa with SACO on behalf of Department of Sports, Arts and Culture is in a really great position to be mandated to conduct such high quality research and to foster that understanding based on data and based on research, as Amy just mentioned. But it's not just research alone. Research only becomes meaningful when it's shared, when it's disseminated, and when it's debated and critically reflected on. And this is exactly what is happening today. So the dialogue is really crucial to get a broader understanding, to provide that input, and especially when there's an opportunity like today to provide input also on meaningful policy-making processes. So that's really where we take the research forward and what is aim of today's event. We as GIZ engage on the topic of AI on a broader scale as well. We have a cross-regional project called Fair Forward that also engages especially on the topic of ethics in AI, and will also be present here today. But our project now on focusing on creative industries especially will take your insights and the debates of today forward, planning to host a webinar series that we would like to initiate with the Global Creative Economy Alliance, where international stakeholders also get your input then in, and we can create and take the topic forward in a webinar series. So with that, I would really like to congratulate and thank SEICO, the SEICO team and the Fak'ugesi team for initiating this dialogue, this meaningful dialogue, and all of you today for your input, for your critical reflection, for your feedback that we can then all input into, as I said, the further policy-making processes here in South Africa especially. So thank you very much, and congratulations to the teams.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Victoria. So, I mean, we've got a big roundup. We've got organizers who have been working tirelessly. We have the South African Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. We have SACO in the room. We've got GIZ. We've got Fak'ugesi. We've got all of you joining us. And I think, touching on what Victoria mentioned, now is the time when we launch into our critical debate and really have those moments where we can play up against the interesting provocation. And I'm going to give it back to you. Artificial intelligence, rushed revolution, or the holy grail of a creative future. So really looking and focusing in the next hour, we're going to be inviting two teams, two speakers each team, who are going to be debating for and against this really important topic. So we're looking at calling on stage Vulani, Nosipo, Eduardo, and Karabo. We're going to take this in chunks. We're going to first start off with Vulani Mthembu, who is from Gamebox at the Goethe Institute, and who is going to be talking for 5 minutes, joined by teammate Nosipo Makato van der Bergt, who will also be looking at the For argument, the CEO of Chocolate Tribe and a former practicing lawyer. Vulani, if you could please take to the stage while you have 5 minutes to do your presentation. I'm going to be looking closely at time so we can monitor. This way, sir. Do you want to take this mic, Vulani?
This will fly. Okay, no. All right, thanks. As you guys join.
Fantastic, thank you. So Fulani's going to do his presentation. He's going to take 5 minutes. He's then going to be joined by teammate Nuzipol. She's going to be doing her 5 minutes. At the end of that, we're going to choose the inverse of team and debate. Also 2 speakers, also 5 minutes. And then the 2 teams will have a chance to rebut. Is everybody clear? Is everybody ready? Because after that, we're going to be opening it to the floor to see where you are. And whilst, I guess, really quite a hyperbole, this idea of a rushed revolution or the holy grail of a creative future, this is not in any way to be dualist or to pick a side, but really to locate our personal ideologies and abate some of the tensions that we feel inside. So take it away, Vulani. You have 5 minutes, sir, and your time starts now.
Oh, no. The pressure. Hey, hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here and also quite happy to see such a great turnout at such an, I was speaking with my teammate Nosipo earlier that it's quite a pleasant to see I'm taking into my time now, just like, I want you guys to be on my side. You see, that's already, yeah, but it's such an early, session, but I mean, we almost have a full house here and it's really great. So, to begin, of course, I'll just like to mention that my whole argument basically will be mostly focused on the fact that it's inevitable. This is, it's happening whether we like it or not. And then mostly focusing on more of how then do we live with AI, machine learning, and all these intelligence systems that are coming at quite a rapid pace. So I'll focus on the first point I'd like to talk about is it's very important not to, as much as we can, of course, affect policy and we can also try and think about certain things like around copyright and things like that. Of course, all of these things have to be revamped and the definitions of them because of what we have now and the current nature of the beast that we're dealing with. So one of the major points for me being for the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence systems is how it will help, of course, which is very obvious. It will help facilitate and help, achieve tasks that were a bit more difficult to do and also democratize a lot of tasks that were gatekept by corporations and things like that, which goes without saying. So I'd like to talk a little bit as well about a movement called the E/AC, which is the Effective Accelerationism movement, which is led by Guillermo Verdon. He calls himself Beth Jesus. Oh my word, I got 1 minute left. No, that's really sad. Yeah, so there is. Thank you. This is a movement led. It's called Effective Accelerationism, and of course, the effective accelerationists believe that we have to embrace AI fully, and also because it's just an inevitable, next step in human evolution and how we need to live with it, and also while it also emphasizes optimism and not because there's a lot of doom and gloom around, oh, AI is going to take our jobs and all those sort of things. But it also highlights a more optimistic future and also a transhumanist future. And they kind of have a name as well for people who are against AI adoption, and they call them D-cells. So it's a very interesting group of people. Now, why do we need to do this? One of the main things that they raise is that embracing this technology and understanding that AI is just going to take over anyway, we need to also make sure that systems and around not only software and algorithms, also hardware needs to also be developed to match. Because I'm sure you might have heard in the news lately, like Sam Altman mentioned as well, that it needs to require so many nodes to compute. It takes a lot of compute power, which is why most people are against the NFT craze a bit earlier on, and also a bit, certain implementations of that. But then we need to develop newer hardware systems to accommodate AI. So that means there could be nanotechnology, there could be thermodynamics, or it could be quantum computing. So by the nature of actually helping develop these other systems, the hardware to support the processing, because right now AI is not even at its full capacity because we're using age-old CPUs and GPUs, which is a bit more legacy. The transistors are legacy tech. We need to. These technologies are also going to be, they're going to the development of these technologies will also be propelled, which, as a result, of course, will help other industries as a result. So AI itself will, of course, benefit from this, but everything else that we do. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, it also will lead to us adopt. Oh my! I'm not going to cover all this. It also people are also concerned about their jobs, their job losses, and also that leads, of course, to more considering things around UBI adoption. Of course, how will people earn? Or how they're going to? There are ways that people can earn with the project. That I'm also a practicing practitioner when it comes to AI development systems. There's a project we have up that is AI-generated music that is up there and it's generating income. And that income from 2009, we decided to take the income from there and actually give it back to the artist. So AI can work for us as well as humans. That's called Nguni Machina. You can look it up. And I think I'm running out of time.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Bulani. And for the bravery in doing the impossible. Hand of applause, please.
Thank you.
Now, I know I'm getting some vicious stares because how are we ever going to speak about these topics in 5 minutes? So on your side, and indeed for the notion, if I could please ask you to join Vulani Nozipho Maketo van der Bracht. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Nozipho is the CEO of Chocolate Tribe and a former practicing lawyer. Also with 5 minutes, a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and good morning. You did a pretty good job. Nozipho Maketo van der Bracht.
Van der Bracht. Thank you, Nozipho.
This is such a wonderful moment to be here and speaking about, this moment that we are at a precipice of technological change. A lot of you may not know I'm a lawyer by profession, a former practicing lawyer, so hence I still have the book. I'm holding on to, the old way of doing things. But I wanted to just focus and distill some of the points that Vulani spoke about, and maybe, give you an insight into how AI is changing the creative space, particularly in the animation, VFX, and IP development space. So I think, firstly, I have to preface the conversation for both of us to say that we're not blindly saying that AI is great and wonderful across the board. We understand that there are ethical considerations. We understand that this is a highly divisive conversation, very emotional, and it has to do with bread and butter issues. It has to do with an existential crisis that we are all facing. That is something that we both recognize and accept. However, we are optimists, and we are, people who feel that there's a great need for adapting. As Darwin said, I know he is not necessarily always the person to quote, but, you change or you die. You know what I mean? And it's survival of the fittest. And fittest is not necessarily having a club and, hitting your opponent with the club. It is changing in, a time that, requires that change. So some of my key points that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of, AI. The biggest thing within our space is efficiency and productivity. So the art of animation, VFX, requires a lot of artists who are sitting, tinkering, doing repetitive tasks. One of the biggest tasks that, within this space that we would have to do is rotoscoping. And those who are in this space understand what I'm talking about, which is an arduous process of actually, penning down, doing a live action shot, and then kind of cutting it out, frame by frame. If you've got 400, 500, 1,000 shots, that means you're sitting there the whole day. And, of course, it's great in terms of employment. We're not disputing that. However, these are the kind of tasks that AI has taken away from the sort of like mundane, boring, tasks. And if I can just also add to that, a lot of how the Indian tech revolution has increased or has been amplified in terms of VFX has been because of rotoscoping, because they were the ones doing the rotoscoping, the cleanup work. And of course, that's created a great big economy within India. But 2 minutes already. Oh, okay. Listen, I'm gonna drill down.
Feels like we had more time.
Rotoscoping. Sorry, I actually thought I wouldn't have enough to say. Rotoscoping. Sora. Some of you may have seen recently Sora, which is the text-to-video, app that's come out. And basically, you can tell the AI what you want to see, and it creates an entire video. What I have to preface in saying that this is a great development is the fact that Sora can only show you images for 5 seconds, and then it starts glitching. And you actually can see that there's something off, there's something uncanny. And this is why I think for us, this is not a necessarily rushed revolution. It is a holy grail in the sense that it allows us as humans to do the things that, we've always wanted to do. And for me, I think this conversation is more a conversation about how it is to be human. I think we're so focused on the AI being this impending doom, and we're not focusing on the fact that we are going to get an opportunity to actually do the things that we love doing. And there will be jobs that focus on us making it a more ethical space. And if I may add, I actually had a brilliant quote. Sorry, yeah, there you go. So I just wanted to add with saying that progress is impossible without change. It's very important that we see this as a moment for us to change. And we have to change before we have to. You know what I mean? So those are my parting shots, and thank you very much. That went quick.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for our opening team. You can see the lawyers amongst us can hold it under pressure. Thank you both very much. If we can set up team over here for the opposing side, introducing, and the two of you may leave the stage, and I'll call you Vuyani Nusipo. I'll be calling you up when we do rebuttals. Yes, you can leave the mic over there. I know, we're going to get comfortable as soon as we open it to the floor. Thanks very much. So on the opposing team, Eduardo, we have you over here. And again, speaking from the side of Fak'ugesi Creative Director, specifically in your role, it would be great to have your 5 minutes. Time is starting now.
Okay. All right. So we are really on the precipice of a new data colonialism. So from the side of being anti-AI or to highly restrict it, I'm really against huge multinational corporations who are already in the trillions of dollars of valuation, making more money from African culture and heritage from us, and to keep feeding back that data to us and keep charging us back. So I think it's really, really important to take this seriously. It's not a time to joke around, and it is moving very fast. So if we don't have a hard and fast stance, we're going to be in huge, huge trouble. So there's two types of models out there. There's proprietary and there's open source. Open source, we all know how this works. It's open for everyone to use. In fact, there's over 300,000 open source models on Hugging Face at the moment. Proprietary, that's the black box. That's ChatGPT or Bard, for example. We don't know what's constituent of the data that's been put into those models. We don't know how they've been trained, and we don't know how the training affects the output. This is a huge problem. It's like a Pandora's box, and it allows these corporations to keep extracting value from Africa. Again, it's not okay. So we really need to take a strong stance to set up something for this. I think I'll reference here the EU Artificial Intelligence Act, because I think they've started setting up some interesting things. I don't think they go far enough in any way. I'll state one element here. They do state obligations laid down in this regulation shall not apply to AI systems under free and open source models. I do think that's really important. So this is not in effect for open source models. We really need to grow the knowledge. As Vulani and Nosipho were saying, we do need to be working in the space. We can't ignore it. But on the commercial side, I propose that we need to develop a strong royalty model for anything related to African culture. The way AI works with its tokenization means it is very easy to know when African culture is actioned within a prompt. So we should set up a very strong royalty system that any time African culture is actioned, this money is going through to Africa, for example, then to South Africa when it relates to particular South African cultural elements. This is actually quite easy to do because it's not like previous royalty systems where you need to go and find where these things happened. The model is digital, so you can track the usage. Why is this so radical? I think it's truly important that we don't start a second data colonialism and extract value from Africa for these companies to grow even bigger and to develop their technology to a level where we can no longer compete. So it's really important for our governments to invest in these open source models and to invest in AI development strongly. We can't let this data be sold back. What kind of models could be used for this? Music royalty models are interesting. France has a very interesting cultural quota for external countries' cultural elements that comes back into being able to fund cultural content in France. I think that's a really interesting one to look at because we need to also grow our cultural footprint, not decrease it. Okay, 1 minute. All right, then I think lastly, the EU Act says something really interesting. The placing on the market, putting into service and use of AI systems that exploits any of the vulnerabilities of a person of a specific group, economic situation, or distorting the behavior of a person pertaining to that group in a manner that causes or is likely to cause the person's personal significant harm, I think is really important. It's basically describing colonialism. And it truly is, if we don't take a stance here, we're just going to be at the end of a new colonialism that is again extracting all the value from Africa and its culture. And I think we need to put a stop to that fast.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. I think very many impassioned statements, and it's wonderful. Thank you very much. I'd like to call Karabo Mayani to deliver the second part of this team's very impassioned statement, also keeping an eye of everything that's happening online. You have 5 minutes, Karabo. Take your mic.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This feels like speed dating. We'll see how I go. I think going to the topic of the AI revolution, I think it's very clear from where we're sitting, even from the opposition side, that it is a rushed revolution. Because yes, all of these great opportunities that come need to come with the necessary infrastructure in place, and we know that we do not have that infrastructure. we don't have the computing power, and the jobs that it takes away, the types of jobs that it replaces with are not equivalent to the jobs that it takes away. And you end up paying, like Eduardo has been saying, the same companies like Adobe who have opaque models that protect the very same data so that they can profit from it. You use it, but you can't. There's no way of protecting the data that you volunteer there to be able to collect it. So it is a rushed revolution. Will we benefit from it? If we are prepared. If we want to pray for the rain in this room without having a roof, we're all going to get wet. That's not going to work. So we need to understand what AI is in terms of definition. And I'm happy my colleague started with data, because that's the source of artificial intelligence. To say, if we don't take care of the data and bring in the data in a way that we should, there's no way we're going to benefit from it. Because the capacity of artificial intelligence to do what it does is to be able to discriminate specific data so that it can optimize function. And to do that means it uses available data that is there. You as a script writer in South Africa who's writing scripts in isiXhosa, there's no way you will benefit from a large language model because there's no data in the system that trains the AI in isiXhosa so that you can have it as a framework. So you're not benefiting. So an English script writer will make more money than you because they'll make more scripts. When it comes to discrimination, again, it speaks about 3 minutes. I'm still good. When it comes to discrimination, again, it speaks about the questions of, if you're here and you're competing for the same opportunities with somebody on the other side, and you do not have the literacy levels of artificial intelligence in the same way that they do, or the necessary infrastructure in the same way that they do, there's no way you can optimize it in the same way that they do. As I'm speaking today, I was very nervous in the morning. I checked the load shedding schedule, because the moment it hits, we're going to go offline. And this is the kind of problems that we have now. So what we need to do, which is very important, is to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place so that we can benefit from it. Because rushing to the AI revolution without the necessary infrastructure in place will mean we're going to lose it. I'm happy there's government people here today, because this is what we need to do. Number one, we need to protect the creative industry of South Africa. We need to understand its age, how young it is, the capacities it needs, so that we do not bring in technologies that pushes out the very little of people that we have in the creative industry. That's number one. Number two, we need to invest in platforms like this to ensure that we train all the necessary practitioners to be able to leverage such models. And if we can do this and do it well, then we can have a conversation about how we can leverage it. But at the moment, we are rushing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karabo. And it does feel like we're rushing it, but it's been an interesting debate as we call up our team number one as well to join on stage. I'd like us also to cross over to see what we're having online and some of the comments that we're going through. I did see an earlier comment wishing that ChatGPT was helping me moderate the conversation so that AI could have indeed a voice. But looking at this, I think it needs the political will to not only create policy, but enforce it. I think that is also going to speak very well to the next session later on this afternoon, where we deep dive into policy and with some of the policy makers in the room, looking at the political will and touching on what we said around the government. Do we have time, though? The big players are already ahead of the game. I think this is also part of the conversation when we talk about rushed. And I think, as one of our panelists mentioned, you know, you kind of have to be ready. Get ready, because there's no time to get ready. So what did you say, Nosipho? You said it way more articulately.
I'm not sure what I said, but I guess, yes, it is about changing and the fact that progress really is impossible without change. So we are at am I allowed to speak now? Can
Absolutely.
If I can just rebut some of the points made by the previous speakers, and now I'm going to go into, you know, I think a lot of it, we are friends, but I think some of the points made were quite emotive and, in a sense, also incendiary, because they focus on pain points that we all know are very touchy. colonialism being one of them. So I applaud you for using those words and getting in there. But we really have to be, serious about, and not that you were not serious, but we have to drill down to the nuts and bolts that this thing, the cat is out of the bag. Yeah. We can't now, close Pandora's box. It's out there. And what do we do as humans when something is already unraveling in front of us? We've got to do something to make sure that it doesn't run away with us. So I do think that a lot of what you're saying in relation to colonialism, in relation to, a data monopoly by the big industries is also a responsibility for our communities to be involved. And it's always been the responsibility in terms of how our response has been to, colonial attitudes or imperial attitudes, is that we need to rewrite that history. We need to get involved. We cannot absent ourselves from, putting data into these systems. You mentioned, Karabo, you mentioned the whole issue of a Xhosa writer not going to be, able to make money because, as opposed to, an English writer. For me, I think if we absent ourselves from that as Xhosa writers or as Zulu writers, it means that we are staying outside of the situation and outside of the problem solving. So definitely think it also is about us being proactive and getting into that space and informing it, because AI only responds. AI is actually a reflection of us. If we are not inputting data, we are outside of that system. So for me, we cannot treat it like it is the other. It is a reflection of who we are.
Thank you, Nasipo. I think that really rounds it up. I'm going to cross over to you as well now, Vuyani, to give you a chance to have a rebuttal, but some interesting provocations around othering ourselves and being devoid of what's happening, and of course huge issues around post-coloniality and the bold, ambitious statements that we are all here to discuss. Vuyani, would you like a rebuttal?
Yeah, I'm just going to try to be very quick as well, so I don't take everyone's time. I've already taken 1 minute by just saying that, I know. I'm Karabo and Eduardo, very good points. But I think there's something that's very important. Nosipo, I mean, you did the things. It's just something I think we don't highlight often enough, because it's particularly in the Global South more. I don't use Global South often, but in this case, just for shorthand. Well, I'd say in Africa more specifically, is that how far are we as well in terms of developing systems that are using AI, LLMs? We do have the systems. We have researchers that have been working close to decades in Africa developing it. In fact, most staff that work for these big conglomerates, the Googles and everyone, some of them are from here. Have researchers from Africa. They're there. They're swallowed, of course, by the big machine, but there's a lot of them here. And part of my work as well with the Institute and also in a personal capacity is meeting these people and seeing what they do. I think it's most important that we highlight what we're doing, because we are actually, for the first time, I would like to think, more so than in other technologies, I think Africa is right, like toe-to-toe with the global north and the west. And I will mention that because I'm just going to highlight a few things. Maybe you can go and check on those. So,
and
for example,
Vuyani, maybe just to highlight one thing.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to run through. Yeah, that's cool. So in terms of LLMs, we do have African LLMs that can go against the ChatGPTs that are trained on African languages. We have data sets that have been collected for the past 7 years by Sadila, Masakani, and things like that. We have Lelapa AI, who is headed by the Polynomies, which have been highlighted even by Time Magazine with the same altments of OpenAI on the same cover, on Time Magazine cover. So we are there. So we just need to highlight. I feel it's not about us being left behind or not. It's more of like us knowing. And also, I'm glad that Karabo did mention that there's more of a government presence here, because they will need to have policy that will help these people accelerate the work they're already doing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, crossing over, and maybe we can start with you, Eduardo. Just some key points in response.
Yeah. So I'm going to really go into this thing around the responsibility to engage. I think that's important, but I think it's important to acknowledge that there's an enormous power imbalance between what they have, let's say these very few organizations, we all know who I'm talking about, and what we have. And I think what Vuyani is saying is correct. We do also have local LLMs. So for example, if we're using Xhosa script writing, that should not be in a proprietary black box model owned by a US company. That should be supported and developed by African governments supporting the development of these. So we are truly developing them. We must not be left behind. That will be disastrous. We'll really be in a terrible situation. But we cannot feed more power to these multinational organizations. That's why I think it's important right now that we would also need to align with other blocs, so BRICS, the European Union, who is thinking very carefully about this already. They're probably the most ahead in terms of policy, but I don't think are going far enough, which is why I framed our frame around data colonialism, because I think it's a good angle politically to take, because Europe can't take that angle, of course, but together, if we work as aligned blocks, I think we can really achieve making sure that if we don't take this chance, it's going to be as if the internet was monopolized from the very beginning, which luckily it was not. But if you don't do this, I really do believe we're in for a huge trouble in the future.
Thank you, Eduardo. Again, some interesting provocations, and maybe back to the point made earlier around collaborative exercise. And AI, in effect, is what we feed it. And if we are not all getting involved, then we are missing the bus. And maybe final statements from you, Karabo, just as we round off this panel and go into the next session for the day.
Thank you so much. I think just a quick one. We need to be able to differentiate between business in arts and the business of art. And I think that's why we're here. So there's artists in this room who are making money from the craft that they have. And if they lack the skill to do so, it means they will be pushed out from the craft. And then there's those of us who have business interest who will leverage certain systems to make sure that we benefit from it. But we need to understand that, for example, Lelapa that you've mentioned and Masakan, one of the biggest domains that hosts them is actually Google, meaning the data is proprietarily owned by Google. That means we have access to data that we do not own. That is why we're saying it's okay to be hosted by Google, but let's ensure that there's some kind of protection in terms of that which is unique to us in what we're doing. And although it's always good to rush to any revolution, and there's beneficence in being there first, but if we're there and we're not ready, we're not going to make any terms of benefit. In fact, we're going to donate our talent like we have done in the past, and people are going to make money out of it, and those people are not going to be us. Thank you.
Thank you, Karabo. A round of applause for the panel, please. No, don't go anywhere. So we have been looking at some of these things online, and I will be crossing over to them, but just to hear a few voices in the room. We have about 5 minutes. We've got 2 roving mics. Oh, we have 15 minutes. Thankfully, we can take our time. I already see some hands, a really high hand, and we're going to send the roving mic. Let's start from the back of the room. I think we have gentlemen in the cap.
Thank you very much. My name is Tondirai. I like both arguments. My thing is that we haven't even finished talking about, over here we talk about the 4th Industrial Revolution. We've got a committee and we've got all that, but we're not even there in terms of that, and the world has moved on from that. And yet here we are talking about AI. So when we talk about being far behind, we're probably, worlds behind. So even what we're talking about right now, in terms of from a government perspective, it's 4IR, which is putting tablets in the hands of school children. Yet in other countries they're not talking about that. They're talking about making, using data and using the very same AI that we're talking about. So we're in a kind of a catch-22.
Thank you, Tondirai. We're going to take a few questions and to relate to the panel. If anybody asking a question has something directly to address to one of our experts on the panel, we're going to take 3 and then we're going to allow for questions, gentlemen. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ricky, and first, just a comment. I'm glad that the discussion is happening around particularly data. And it's great because I know that the copyright laws sector has had a very difficult time over the years trying to conscientize people about the importance of copyright. And this really has made it personal for pretty much everybody. My first question is, or if I just have 2, who owns Africa's data? Right? That's number 1. And then number 2 is, what is the difference between AI, machine learning, and automation? And where do these rank in the conversation that we're having today? Thanks.
Thank you very much. And final question over here before we cross to panel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this important conversation. I'm representing publishers and songwriters alike. And so I kind of want to know what your comments are with regards to, the current campaigning. I'm sure many of you are aware that copyright holders are currently campaigning against the Copyright Amendment Bill, which has certain clauses that are threatening the value of the copyright, right? Very similar conversations to what you're having here. It threatens and it dilutes the power of it because the balance of the power now is given more to the music user, right? Which is a digital service provider and, these technologies that you're addressing. So clearly there is a theme right now where we are all trying to protect original creators, from the exploitation and the recopying that you cannot control, from techs and from big monopolies. So just on that scale, what are your comments on this Copyright Amendment Bill? Are you aligned in the fight? That's my question.
Thank you. And very big question. So crossing over to the panel, starting for the first one with really, where are we in this conversation? It seems like issues pertaining to access, pertaining to exposure, pertaining to influence that many of us aren't even able to be on the gravel road, let alone in the race. And maybe I can lead that to you, Eduardo, given your work in Festival and also Viviani.
Maybe I'll go. I do think there is an issue in South Africa around where we're at in terms of this. I think that we shouldn't get sidetracked. I would agree with what Vulani was saying earlier. We're not so far behind. If you look at WITS with their Rail Lab, it's one of the best AI laboratory, like academic-based laboratories in the world. It's not like we're light years behind.
IIS, UJ as well. Yeah, we're like going toe to toe.
I think maybe then to add for the second question, which is around the copyright laws or who owns our data, technically no one, in the way these data have been set up. What I would like to suggest is that we need to create a new structure. And because we're dealing with digital data, it means like never before, we can create the framework. So I think almost like creating hashtags or labels or kind of filters, we need to decide what filters pertain to African data. What exactly is that? Is it the languages? Is it the specific culture? It's specific graphic elements that we then, in a way, create labels that are copyrighted that extract those royalties. I think this doesn't even exist. It's like a new way of thinking of culture in a much more abstract way, because that's how data models work in AI.
Thanks, Eduardo. And I think, Arabo, you made some interesting observations on data and going back to the question around who owns Africa's data. Perhaps some comments from you and Nosipo perhaps responding to the question around copyright. Arabo.
Thank you so much. I think, so there was a question about automation, AI, and machine learning, and I think one feeds to the other. I think that's the best answer. AI is born from automation, which is mechanized systems that can be pre-programmed. Artificial intelligence is a rule-based system that optimizes set mechanization, and machine learning is an adaptive system of set automized systems. So one feeds after the other. We've moved from the times of automation to times of artificial intelligence. Machine learning, just like deep learning, neural networks are ways in which artificial intelligence can be done. And yes, on the question of data ownership, it's a very tricky question because the ownership is usually the domain owner, which is what Eduardo is saying, that is something that we need to look into and see how we change it. And one of the trickiest things about it is that the information that they own is not the information that they extracted. It's mostly one that we have volunteered. I can almost bet you money everybody in this room has a Gmail account that they've linked to their LinkedIn and their Facebook and their Twitter and everything. That's donated data. but you don't own it because it's on their platform. And to get it back from the platform is actually a very difficult process. So we shouldn't look at who owns it now in terms of, because that's a trickier problem. We should rather focus on how we can use these platforms and optimize them in such a way that they bring beneficence to us.
Thank you. I think really important. And going back to the question, particularly representing publishing and songwriting around the campaign, around copyright, very important as we go into next session as well. Nazifa, your initial thoughts?
Yes, I mean, firstly, I want to say that we definitely align with artists. There's a case that was in the United States Supreme Court that related to a comic, creator, and what she did. I think it was Zaria of the Dawn, and what she did was actually write the comic, herself, and then AI generated the images, and then she submitted it to the registry to say, I've created this work, and initially it was accepted as her original work, fully, all of it. And then upon, further, discussions and investigation, they then kind of reviewed that decision saying she will own the written aspect of it, but not the AI-generated aspect of it. So, we are in a very interesting time. And the biggest thing is that to some extent, it is a rushed revolution. It really is. However, having said that, we are making this plane as it's flying. You know what I'm saying? And we cannot go backwards now. There is no, room to go back into the womb and wish everything, to happen differently. So I definitely think that the way forward is activism. It is regulation. It is making sure that all of us are involved in this conversation and not absenting ourselves and, othering the AI. For me, these conversations are quite synonymous to, even from a political perspective, where people will project or transfer their, fears. That's also another reason why I was saying to Eduardo that using the colonial, the imperial, those are touch points that we all know that are very, incendiary, and they drill down to our visceral self. So it's very important for us not to go down into that highly divisive conversation. We need to look for new ways of, integrating ourselves, or maybe AI integrating into our lives, or the other way.
Thanks for that, because that's interesting, and it's so wonderful to be able to reference case law. So in the example of this, where, the writer owned the written text, and then who owned the AI generated? And I ask you that because that then would suggest that AI owes the AI, and I also wanted to bring back to kind of the etymology of the word, or perhaps not etymology, but what are we talking about when we talk artificial intelligence? And, as we close off the session, I know there are many answers. There's many questions to get in. I'd love some closing statements and kind of how the word is constructed, how the word is the thing, removing emotion, looking at specific ways that word can sometimes other us in a visceral way that has also been shared in very impassioned ways that speak to tensions around job loss and where we are in the race, and also what that means for our data and our ownership, which are very trepidatious spaces to be in. So going back to the word and it being the thing, I wonder any comments from that side around artificial intelligence, and can artificial intelligence own artificial intelligence?
Thank you. Oh, you just passed it. Thank you for that. Well, it's something very interesting. I'd like to just point out something very interesting that AI is kind of forcing us to come to a reckoning with. Now, in terms of copyright, most of the concepts around copyright are actually based on Western systems of thought and ownership. And most people will know that most African civilizations, most African systems or ways of sharing knowledge are actually very much open sourced. So like in a community, making a spear or making umqombothi, it was knowledge that was shared by everyone, right? And then of course you can add your own little twist to the recipe or whatever. So now what is happening, I feel that AI, in terms of just copyright as well, it's forcing us to come to this lovely, which I feel is very positive way of thinking about sharing certain knowledge with the community, almost like your tribe, which will be a global tribe or it's an African tribe or whatever it is. But at the same time, putting those little twists on to whatever you're doing, because this has been the case for millennia in Africa, where knowledge is not necessarily owned by one person and you copyright that and it's you. You're the inventor of something. So in my case, I think, that's where it's going now. It's just more very much of a very open source, very great way of looking, positive way of looking at knowledge sharing in terms of what artificial intelligence is bringing to,
And its capabilities and its impact. Thank you, Fulani. I mean, I'm wondering, Karabo, from Nelson Mandela University and the AI ethics expert. I mean, how are we framing artificial intelligence? I mean, it's a glorious title, and really just to embody and close with your closing statements, just really on the beginning forms of understanding artificial intelligence.
I feel like if I don't answer right here, then I'm no longer an expert. Let me try.
I think it's a safe space, and we're all learning together.
So, intelligence is a cognitive function that it's assumed that all humans have, and because we have rationality. And so, artificial intelligence is an attempt to mimic said cognitive function. So, one of the common phrases of artificial intelligence was the Alan Turing question, whether a machine can think. And that's what gave birth to this obsessive and attention to the notion of machine thinking. But a machine thinking is not machine thinking necessarily. It's a machine mimicking the process of thinking. Because to be able to think, one has to have consciousness, which is something assumed to only exist in sentient entities. So that's on the question of artificial intelligence. So what it's supposed to do in many instances, even in its complexities, is to optimize and deal with redundancies that we don't have to deal with. So in that regard, then it serves a purpose from an instrumental perspective. One of the biggest challenges that exists now is that because of its powerful functions, we have tended to anthropomorphize it and treat it as though AI can do anything. AI can't do anything. AI is data that is logged into a system that is given instruction that functions based on that instruction as per the instruction of the user. A vacuum cleaner that is automated can never make eggs. It's impossible. It's incapable. And that's what makes us intelligent at it, artificial intelligence, because it can only optimize specific function. And I think when we're saying it's a rushed revolution, we're not saying let's put the genie back in the bottle. We can't. What we're saying is that let's prepare so that we can benefit from it. Thank you.
And I think also a lot of hope there as we start looking at ownership and our role in it. Eduardo, your closing remarks.
Just very shortly around I've really thought about this quite strongly around the incendiariness. I do think for corporates, we have to rile up some kind of emotion, because otherwise it leaves us in quite a passive state. I haven't seen, other than the European Union Act around AI, there has really been very little government coordination, high level around policy, and it's all very slow. If we work at the slowness of the Copyright Act that's been in action for about 10 years, wow, we are going to be so dead in the water. It's going to be crazy. So I think it is a moment to be incendiary, because we don't have time. That's why this conversation is so important. We've got to do this now, not like 10 years from now.
Fantastic, thank you. And rounding us off, Nozipho.
Thank you for that. I am very happy that both speakers who are opposing us are agreeing with us. So yes, I feel like we've won the conversation.
We're going to take this to a poll and everybody will vote.
But on a serious note, I do think that, AI is a very powerful ally. It is a tool. It is not meant to replace us. So I think for us, why it's important to almost remove the emotive conversation is because then we can truly see and understand what AI can do for us. I honestly feel the focus is on us being human and the ability for us to do and pursue the things that we've always wanted to do, but we've constantly defined ourselves as our jobs. And therefore, when that is taken away from us, we don't know what to do with ourselves. So that's
I think a wonderful reminder. Vuyani, you look like you were burning. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Yeah.
I'm just saying, go team.
A really big vote of thanks. Go team. And thank you, everybody, for your provoking questions. A round of applause for an interesting debate. Thank you so much. I mean, the fun doesn't stop. We are well into way of a really exciting program, and look at everybody shaking hands. I think, again, this really shows testament to not so much the hyperbole or the dualism between which side you're on. What you think about AI, where it's going and its impact in creative industries is really something that we're all here to sketch together through the research and through the very interesting conversations. So now we are shifting gears and we're going into the World Café strategy. So this really means we've got international and local speakers. We are going to be looking at 4 key topics. And our first theme, which I think is a beautiful segue of our previous conversation, is really tackling copyright, IP, ownership, and mitigating against bias in these areas. So online, we are going to be joined by Dr. Oliver Schoenberg. I hope I get that right. Excuse me, Dr. Oliver Scherenberg, EU-based IP licensing lawyer, who'll be joining us online. I see you already there, Dr. Oliver. A licensing lawyer, advocate for safe Web3 and generative AI, founder of award-winning Web3 LEX, the virtual law firm, an intellectual property attorney with almost 20 years of experience in licensing and monetization. Regulatory aspects of live streaming are anchor field of his activity. Until 2022, Dr. Scherenberg was the outsourced general counsel for a leading monetizing company for standard essential patents in the media and telecom fields, facilitating half a dozen patents and pools under his half a dozen patent pools during his tenure. Please a warm round of applause for Dr. Scherenberg. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. You have the next 8 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Thank you very much. And I indeed appreciate the chance to talk to you about generative AI and copyright and intellectual property issues. So when we look at this, basically we have 2 different perspectives to take, and I will focus only on one of them, but I will also mention the second. So basically what we have is generative AI tools, which means some sort of machine that does something because a human wants this machine to do something. They're basically people who create this machine, so who feed the AI with data, and I will get back to that soon. And then there is the user who takes things out or extracts or triggers something from these, let's call them machines or their tools or models or whatever. From the intellectual property perspective, there are 2 different angles. The one is, how does the machine get its information and how will it process this information? Which means people will expect this tool to function in a way that it knows things, it can do things, but based on certain experiences and existing, especially works of art. Now, in the intellectual property space, what you would assume is that that there is a model that has been trained on someone else's creativity. That means typically, for example, if you have ChatGPT, it is based on text. So it basically learns text, it learns patterns in text, which means it can kind of reproduce or interpret how text shall be generated in the future. And the same is true for models like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, which generate pictures from text prompts, or Runway, for example, which is another tool that generates video from text prompts. That means in order to generate something, they need to go back and find reference in existing works of art. And that is the big question that we're not going to tackle in too much of a detail today. That big question of, is it okay to use the creative resources that are publicly available to feed a machine that then kind of blends everything together, deconstructs everything, interprets everything to generate something new? Having said that, those who are from the creative industry have a pretty clear opinion. While, for example, in the European Union, it is okay for the model providers to indeed use copyrighted material without the model having to ask for permission first. It is not totally clear in other jurisdictions. In the US, for example, where we have a lot of copyright law cases, there may be something like transformative use or fair use, but there is no clear exception as we have it in Europe. Now, the question that leaves us wondering is, well, if we cannot do anything as creative people, can we at least get compensation? So if we cannot avoid that our work is being used for training artificial intelligence, can we at least ask for money? And this is the discussion we will need to be having in the future. And my position is very clear. There needs to be some sort of compensation for those who actually deliver the input that can even make the models train and work. Now, I spent a lot of time talking about something I didn't even really want to talk. I just wanted to give you this full picture of information. Much more interesting for those who will work with artificial intelligence tools or models in creative industries, much more important for them to know is what I generate with these tools, is this something that will be protected by copyright? That means if I use an AI tool like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, even ChatGPT or Runway or others, will whatever comes out of that, will that be protected by copyrights or anything else? And the reason why that is so important for me is, if I'm working in the creative industry, I want to monetize whatever I created or whatever I had generated through my input. Because otherwise, if I want to sell that to someone, or if I do that as an agent for someone else, I may have trouble selling creativity and license my work of art. And indeed, this is something where we will also need to have discussions in the future. It is unclear, totally unclear at this stage, how much of a human input is necessary in order to get to a level where it's not a machine result, but where it is a human creation. So in many jurisdictions in the US already, but also in Europe, this will be one of the crucial things that courts will have to decide for now, because it will be discussed on a case-by-case basis. And before we have legislation in this regard, we will simply need to have a best guess and academic discussions with respect to how much input is necessary to make the human the creator behind the AI, because the AI or the machine, the model, cannot have any rights, and it's not supposed to have any rights. So having said that, having summarized these two aspects of input data, copyright issues, how can I use them, output of the machine, will that be copyrightable? I wanted to set the stage for further discussions, and I'm looking forward to further exchange and maybe some questions later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. That was Dr. Oliver Scherenberg. And some interesting insights as to what's going to be a very hot topic. Later on, after the session and after a few of the presentations, we're going to have breakaway sessions that's going to be led from each of our speakers, and we're going to delve into these issues in a little bit bigger detail. So staying online, and a big thank you to everybody who's joining us from online. Next up, we have Douglas Ian Scott from Wikimedia Foundation, South Africa, advocating for the adoption of freedom of panorama and fair use into South African copyright law. Since 2015, he has been working to get South African copyright law amended and has so far gotten both freedom of panorama and fair use into the South African Copyright Amendment Bill of 2019, which has been passed by both houses of parliament. Presently, this is awaiting presidential enactment into law, but what an astounding achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Douglas Ian Scott. Douglas, I hope you can hear us. Apologies, we're just sorting out sound.
Oh, sorry about that.
You seem to be on mute.
I accidentally muted myself.
There you go, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to talk less about copyright in South Africa and my activities there, and I'm going to talk more about AI and how it is used in Wikipedia and views therein, and also how that overlaps with copyright in South Africa. sort of on a first note, modern AI models are typically extensively trained on content from Wikipedia. So the reason why a lot of AI-generated content reads the way it does, it sort of speaks in this semi-authoritative, kind of neutral tone, that has largely been modeled on work generated by volunteer Wikipedia editors. And content from Wikipedia is generally very heavily weighted in relation to the other content that AI models are trained on. Now, the Wikipedia community on the right level generally is okay with this, and that's because we're an open community, and so long as it adheres to the Creative Commons licenses that we ourselves subscribe to and release our own content under, we're fine with that. And I mean, the Wikipedia community itself grows out of this sort of free knowledge sharing sort of mission. So for us, that side of the AI copyright debate isn't so it isn't so concerning to us. What is of a greater concern is how AI can affect the generation of new knowledge. Sort of current thinking within the Wikipedia community is that knowledge fundamentally is human, and the way in which AI tends to produce results, especially related to knowledge, sort of really reminds us of that. I mean, we believe that first and foremost, simple level, it's sort of part of our founding sort of beliefs within the open knowledge movement, that knowledge has to be generated by people for people, but also because of the results that AI tends to throw up. AI models still tend to have a hallucination problem. It sort of tends to make stuff up on the fly to kind of please the user. This is a problem that still hasn't been adequately overcome. And it sort of and this is particularly true if AI is using AI-generated knowledge to produce results. Then results can get increasingly and very, very rapidly distorted. And that, for us, is a big reminder why AI needs to continue to be knowledge needs to continue to be human-driven, human-created, human-curated. That doesn't mean, however, that AI can't be used as a tool, and the community is still sort of discussing and reaching a consensus about sort of how to use AI as a tool for creation of content. However, there are still issues of bias in AI. That's another issue that is a concern to us. AI does try very hard to write in a neutral point of view. Most AIs, not all that successful at it. However, AI is also a reflection of the world that we inhabit. I mean, it is informed on the data it's trained on, and the data itself is got biases sort of interwoven into it. And it requires us human beings living in the real human world to change that foundational knowledge so that the AI is less biased, but also so that we are sort of less biased as well. And that is a group effort that requires a vast array of humanity. It requires multiple different viewpoints. And it is also, again, a reminder of how knowledge is human. In terms of sort of acceptable use of AI on Wikipedia, generally the Wikipedia community, there's a growing consensus, it's still debated, but generally the consensus is that you can use it to start articles or maybe review articles, but on Wikipedia, but you should never use it to entirely write articles. It just does a bad job of it. It also tends to make facts up. So you always check the facts, you add the facts in. You don't rely on AI for fact checking, not at all, never. When it comes to AI images, the Wikipedia community has by and large taken the consensus view that AI does not have rights to copyright. People who AI produce content is like the general consensus is that it's not copyrightable at the moment. That's within the community. That might change depending on how court decisions and legal decisions in the rest of the world go. But at the moment, the indication is that that's probably also how it's going to go internationally as well. That AI is just a tool, and tools don't have personality rights or legal rights like people do. And so its content is not copyrightable. I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much.
A round of applause, and thank you very much for joining us, Douglas. Okay, so we're going to go quickly into our second theme, and we're looking at how AI impacts creative work and daily creative production. I'd like you to join us on stage, please, Louise Claassen from Henley School of Business as a program director and executive fellow at Henley Business School, Africa, that is based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Louise has designed, developed, facilitated, and integrated different management and leadership development programs, for different clients. She's been able to collaborate with some extraordinary people in this incredible, learnsome, maverick, and richly creative environment, with clients that include, amongst others, Discovery, Accenture, Insita, Banksita, Standard Bank, CCBSA, and the Pepcore Group. So you've also had the opportunity to co-design and co-facilitate regional and international immersions in China, Russia, the UK, the US, Canada, Ghana, Tanzania, and Kenya. You're joining us in Johannesburg. Whew, what a CV. Thanks very much for joining us, Louise.
Thank you. Is this the mic? Thank you. I'm wondering what I sent through to you. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Actually, the collaborator I'm most fond of at the moment really is ChatGPT. So I definitely come down on the optimist side of things. So in the creative space, I think there are 3 points that I would like to touch on. I definitely think augmented, I think generative AI has had an absolutely massive impact on productivity in the creative space, and it's really been very interesting to observe in a number of different ways. But I think that we're slowly observing or potentially forecasting a shift in skill, a shift in capability, if you like, in this space. So there was the process of creation, and then the process of co-creation through prompt engineering and trying to think about how to creatively develop prompts so that you got the outputs that you require. And as this space, this generative AI space, becomes richer and more richly populated, I think what we're seeing is the emergence of a new skill, and I'm going to call it like fleet management, if you like, or AI management. So it's the kind of skill where you need to understand what it is that different kinds of AIs are good at, and how you manage that process of getting the best out of AI. So I think the second point really comes to this relationship that we're developing with AIs, and you might choose to call it a partnership. You might be more comfortable with the idea of interaction simply, but to me, it feels like my journey with AI has very much turned into a relationship with AI, where I understand how a particular AI functions, what prompts it responds to, what kinds of results I'll get in particular ways, and where, as I work with a greater variety of AIs, what seems to be required of myself is to understand what will be best in what particular situation. So it's that process of almost understanding how I have a team of AIs, and what do I do to get the best out of those AIs. So if we're thinking about what we do as creatives in our different worlds and for our different purposes, perhaps it's useful and valuable to think about the capability sets that we are developing in this process, and to take a step back and to think about what we have developed in this process. So when we talk about that human-AI relationship piece or partnership piece, there's another element there that I think is really interesting, and I often see this in class. The psychology or the stance or the mental model that we bring to our engagement with AI can have very telling impact on the kind of outputs that we get. So if that stance is somewhat cynical, somewhat weary, if it is the perspective that this AI can only really output what's been inputted into it, then you're not going to get particularly great outputs, because that translates into perhaps the abundance or the generative attitude that you put into your engagement with AI. If on the other side you are over-optimistic, gushy, really embrace this with abundance, anthropomorphize fiercely, as one of our colleagues on stage said earlier, and I identify with that attitude, you might get absolutely brilliant results, really creative, be willing to push beyond the boundaries, and it can work for you in many ways. But the downside could be that you're not as careful, perhaps, or as finely judgmental of the outputs as you should be. You're not as cautious and as you don't bring your ability to really evaluate those outputs as carefully as you should. So that balanced approach, that ability to really understand what you have, which of your AIs are able to do what, or if you work with ChatGPT-4, which of your GPTs are able to deliver what quality, in what kind of context, that's a kind of a higher order skill that I think really is worth developing at this particular point in time. And I think that does speak then to discernment and decision making, which is the third element that I would just like to position as part of this AI in creativity conversation that I'm keen for us to have. I think a big part of the creativity in this space is actually in the use of. And so I'm hoping that as we go into the breakaway and this particular stream breakaway, that part of what we're able to do is to share some of that creativity. What is it that you do to get the best out of your AI? Well, how is it that you shape your particular relationship? What are the tips, tricks, techniques that you bring into your space? What has worked for you and what has fundamentally not worked for you? And then in a broader sense, where are we going to? How can we as African creators create a capability set that truly is remarkable and that truly lets us stand proud of the way that we're able to generate creative content in partnership with the different AIs that are available to us? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louise. Some interesting insights into kind of mental preparedness, and what you put in and what you think you are going to be receiving might be some of that you get out. And I've never really thought about it that way. Thanks very much. Okay, still staying in with theme number 2, how AI impacts creative work and daily creative production. We have our final speaker. Please take to the stage Cuben Nair. Did I get your surname right, sir? Nair, Technology Director at Harambee Youth Employee Accelerator. Cuben believes in the youth of our country and continent, the future of our society. He has been privileged to use his experience and skills in strategy, leadership, branding, tech, and innovation to help transform our labor market so that every young person, regardless of affordability and background, will have a just opportunity to learn, work, and earn. One day lead us better than we've led them. Thank you, Cuben.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you, everyone. Good morning, everybody. So one of the top 5 skills needed for the future of work is resilience, adaptability, and flexibility. So in that spirit, I'm actually going to move us along and get to the meat. So let me signal to the tech team. Next slide. Next one. Next, yeah, pause. Sorry, I don't have a clicker. I think that was the AI Café's way of keeping humans in the loop, so thank you. So, I'm not an expert. I don't think any one of us can be experts on the future impact of AI. So, in this world where it's such an unpredictable future, how do we think about this? Do we despair, or how do we plan and design for this future? One way to think about it is in planning for scenarios and what kind of frameworks can help us in planning. So, next slide. I want to offer a framework around how we might think about jobs and AI impact on jobs. So there's 4 categories that we can think about. The first one we call insulated jobs. So these are jobs that we see are probably going to be safe from AI, safe from automation. It may help, AI may help, but these jobs will be relatively safe. If you kind of move us along, there's some of these jobs are typically, healthcare workers, construction, real estate, mining, transport, or hairdressers. I mean, no one wants to have a new hairstyle that's hallucinated by an AI. Augmented jobs. Now, these are jobs that, we think will have a big boost from AI. These jobs might remain, But the job titles of the future is going to need different and new skills. So a graphic designer in 2030 will need new and different skills than the graphic designer of 2020, right? So this needs a lot of upskilling. And these jobs, as we can see, jobs in kind of tech, but also jobs in the creative industry that some of you hold. The third one is disrupted jobs. And these are jobs that we see are most at risk of AI automation, of being replaced or displaced. These largely tend to be in administration, telemarketers, customer support, things like that. But one of the things that we don't talk about enough is the new jobs that might come through AI. And these are jobs that don't exist currently. We're seeing some of that emerging. We talked about prompt engineers, or like Karabo as an AI ethicist. That's some of the new jobs. So what are some of the new ones that we can see? The big question, though, is how do we prepare people for these 4 categories of jobs, right? And if you can move us along, maybe the next one. So I'll leave us kind of with 4 trends that we're seeing in skilling. The first trend is skills-based hiring. Now, CVs, as we know it, is not going to cut it for the future, right? If you think about that graphic designer, in 2020, that graphic designer is going to need new and different skills. If you're hiring for a graphic designer, the fact that you were a graphic designer in 2020 doesn't really matter. So past job titles don't matter. How do we assess for skills? At Harambee, this is something that we advocate for passionately, because the young people of South Africa, they're unemployed because they don't have formal job titles to put on their CV, but they do have skills. So what are some of the skills that we need to get in the future? Next one. What are employers saying? The top growing skills for the future that's needed. Some of the top 3: creative thinking, analytical thinking, tech literacy, and AI. So many of you creatives, researchers, you've got creative thinking, analytical thinking. Add tech literacy and AI, and you're well on your way to the future of work. Next trend. So the second trend that we're seeing, next slide please, is employer-led skilling. The sad truth is that employers don't trust what's coming out of the education system. So they're seeing that they need to invest big time in skilling their own workforce. And what they're doing is onboarding training, it's internships, as well as on-the-job training, and bringing in the future of work and skilling. What they're asking for is kind of incentives from government to help, as well as support from the skilling sector. So if you move to the next slide, that comes to kind of trend 3, which is real innovation that we're seeing in the skilling sector and the skilling parties coming to the party. To kind of move us along, I'll kind of give it just a few examples. So at Harambee, we are very proud to have incubated a new entity called the Collective X. It's a partnership with companies in South Africa that have tech jobs, but are saying we don't have tech skills in South Africa. And we can't rely on computer science graduates like myself. So we actually need new skilling models that are accelerated, that are cheaper, faster, more inclusive to get young women and men into tech jobs of today. The other thing is that government is coming to the party in kind of funding some of these skilling models that actually lead to jobs, not certificates, like the Jobs Boost program. And lastly, on internships, we have the Yes for Youth program, which offers incentives to businesses to get young people into internships and brings in the future of work and skilling. The last trend that I will touch on is self-skilling, real democratization of skilling. And we can see, if you kind of move us along, the kind of usual suspects, where we can get some of these skills at quality and sometimes for free for ourselves. And how do we do that? So I'll conclude with maybe the next slide, and maybe you can kind of move us along to the last picture. So the thing that I guess I want to call out to all of you as creators, innovators, researchers, with novel jobs, you aren't just creating art and entertainment. You have such power and imagination to create the jobs of the future for us in South Africa. And the thing I want to call out and plea and ask of you is to join us in inclusion, in making sure that no one is left behind. Because the work we've done in trying to understand who are the people in the jobs that are most at risk in disruption, and it ends up being young people of South Africa that are most in those disrupted jobs. It ends up being young women who are most in those jobs ready for disruption. And the young people that are already being left behind are the ones who live too far away from the city to come here or have internet connectivity. They can't afford data. They can't afford digital devices. They can't join us online. So how do we hear their voices? And how do we make sure that no one is left behind in this future? So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kuku. Thank you very much. Again, an interesting call for action, for consciousness, for inclusivity, coming from a lot of the questions that we've been getting from audiences. Interestingly enough, we've also been having a lot going on online. I wasn't joking earlier about raising polls and stating your opinion on some of the topics. There's a string of polls that will be happening as long as you join the online YouTube link, as well as what's happening on Soda TV. You'll be able to access some of those polls. Your opinions and your inputs are so important as we build towards some research outputs. And now is the time. I know everybody's been wanting to stretch their legs. We have about a 3-minute comfort break, and then we are into our breakaway sessions. So at this point in the afternoon, we're going to be looking at 3 breakaway sessions. There will be 2 spaces that will remain here in the iClub. This is going to be moderated by myself, Louise, and Cuben. For those wishing to engage in that theme, please remain here. As you enter Tshimologong, there's that glass office. Please go through to there, where you will be facilitated by Douglas, Oliver, and Amy and Heike will be there to also drive conversation and also to deliver some feedback. Thereafter, and this is before lunch, and I know everybody has really been giving a lot of energy over this morning, we're going to return here, and then we're going to give some high-level feedback on what's being discussed. And then I promise our minds will be exploding a little bit more than it's already have. I can hear the buzz. Let's get up and get some energy. Thank you for joining so intently this morning, and let's have good breakaway discussion centers. So once again, 2 remain here, 1 go to the glass at the entrance, and our moderators will be over here so we can distribute teams. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi. Can we just make an announcement that online participants can join me in the Zoom room, please? Hi everyone, it's Amy, AI me. Just announcing that we're over to...
What time? Thanks for that announcement.
Hi everyone.
Thanks, Amy. Has everybody gotten that? All online guests to please join Amy on the online Zoom platform. Given that we're a few minutes over, what time do we get back to this room?
I think let's try to keep on track if we can. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, if I could encourage you to move swiftly to your breakaway sessions. We are all going to be getting back into this room at 12:45. Excuse me. Hi everybody, apologies for the confusion. We've got 3 teams. If you are looking to speak to IP, please go to the glass office. If you are looking to join Cuban and his team on talking about employability in a new age, please proceed up the stairs to your left. Neo will be outside leading the way. In this room is our conversation around creative production, joined by the lovely Louise at the water cooler. If we can all gather over here. And again, a reminder to please return to the venue at 12:45. And online, you'll also be able to join in your Zoom cards. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Let's... Yeah. Oh. okay if we can get 2 mics down this side and asking everybody to huddle a little bit this way.
Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Meet your curiosities and make lots of curiosity babies in this process, because that's the beauty of like being creative, right? Is we get to do that. So and a bunch of my curiosities that I'm hoping we can use to start this conversation off is it's around perhaps starting with, you know, who is who, and I know I'm anthropomorphizing. And maybe we can let that be okay in this conversation. But like, who's AI in your life? Like, what does AI do for you? And how do you feel about AI? And what is that relationship like for you now? And as I use this mic, because then we can send this mic around, right? And test it. We can get this one as well. Hello. There we go. So, awesome. Just join the circle. We're just going to make the circle bigger. So that's awesome. We're going to just make like a circle. And yeah. Awesome. Hello. You're so cool. You got like such a nice vibe. So we can exchange bracelets if you want. Just saying. Exchange bracelet. I'm just saying, no, don't worry. So anyway, so mostly I'm interested in, but just as a starting point, and then what we do is whenever you want to change the conversation, you say, but I have a different question, and my question is this, and then we go off in a different direction, right? So if that's okay. But I'm curious about who or what chat or generative AI is in your life, and what your relationship is like, or what you imagine the future to be, and what your current is, and we can start the conversation off there. So I want to send this mic round, if that's okay. I'm going to see. We've got this mic as well. And then we can just do it. Well, if you don't want to talk, you just pass it on. Or whoever wants to start, just say, me. And then we go like that.
Hi, good, how are you? So for me, the reason why I'm here is because it's something that I just find daunting. Like, I know that I have to engage with it, but I just don't know where to start, and I just feel afraid that it's going to make my work redundant, and so I've just been sort of avoiding it. And so what I loved about your talk is that you were just so optimistic about it, and you see it as a collaborator, and that's what drew me to this conversation.
Oh, that's awesome. Who wants to ping that back? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed the way you spoke about AI. I think one of the problems with discussions is it's at such a level of generality. You know, there's just this AI, you know, it's like Skynet. And it is about particular tools that have got their own personalities. So in my creative practice, I work primarily with photography. So I've been using Midjourney, if you know that. And the big struggle with using Midjourney from a photographic perspective is to try and prompt engineer that you get photorealistic images. And the big problem, this is where you feel the personality of the particular tool. Midjourney gives you these very cooked, highly charged, visually impactful images. And it takes a lot of work with the prompt engineering to try and get it into more mundane photographic images that are the kind that are useful to a photographer as opposed to a commercial graphic artist, which it was clearly designed for.
that there's a parallel to that in chat, for sure, which is like, can we do away with the floral language? Can we just tone it down? Can we simplify? No, definitely. You resonate. Hello.
All right, everyone. So I think with most tech, you go through the journey of excitement and fear. And I think the excitement drew me in much more than the fear. And to me, it was such a natural, engaging conversation. Like the AI could keep up with my crazy ideas and lack of flow of thought. And what I was just explaining, like, I struggle to understand that other people don't get that. You know, for me, it's just a constant relationship. And I see that you brought all the creatives here. Everyone's wearing yellow stickers. So something attracts. And, you know, I'm interested in the mental health spectrum and different disabilities people have and how they interact differently with these tools. You know, I'm also in the blockchain space. And what I love is to see that interweaving. So the way I've understood it, AI kicked off because it can show you what it does. It doesn't have to tell you what it does. And we intuitively understand, and we need to be shown things because we're not very good at really interpreting. Blockchain hasn't managed to do that yet. So most people see Bitcoin, they see fluctuations, they don't really know what's going on underneath. AI is teaching blockchain how to evolve. And blockchain, I think, will be an answer to this crazy world of AI content creation where we don't have the process resources to know what's real. We need to know, where does something come from? Who created it? What's their reputation? What do they stand for? So to me, it's the interweaving of these new technologies that's really cool. And I don't think there's enough African representation in either space. So I'm keen to see that.
I think that is so awesome. I want to pick up on just a few things. Firstly, I want to just welcome everybody else that's joined us. The shape we have in mind for this conversation is a sort of a circle. So if you want to come into the circle, then we'll just push chairs back and we'll just pull people in, and then just please be part of it. It's a sort of circle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being generous. Okay, I pushed. It's not unusual for me to push buttons. So, okay, thank you. So, thank you very much for the circle. And then the second thing is, we started the conversation by saying, I didn't push that button. So, okay, so we all have curiosities about and relationships, or perhaps aspirant relationships with AI, and intentionally framing it. Thank you. Thank you. So we're letting our curiosities mingle and make curiosity babies. That's pretty much what's happening here. So, I think to your question, though, and to your point, AI is so accessible. It is such a fun, easy place to start. And I think it's not difficult to find prompts that can be a good sort of a part of the start of the journey, and that's really helpful. I found for myself that my journey with Chat 3.5 was a good long journey, and I thought, I'm happy here, I can stay here. And then one day I hit a wall, and it was like, this is no longer enough. And I was like, this has only been in the world for a minute. How can it no longer be enough? And then I made Chat 4, and so far we're growing together. What can I say? All right, over to you.
Thanks. I work in the tech, film, and television space, and what we have to do is we have to wear many hats all the time. So I'll often move from writing a script to looking at budgets to putting together treatments or dealing with visual mediums. And Our claim to fame is the fact that we think we can do it all, but in reality, it is terrible for our mental health and confidence. So in the middle of the night when broadcasters asked me to put together a 2-pager, the English is finishing. And so I found that, chat specifically has come in as a friend, as somebody who helps me equal the playing field, because I get judged, as a creative on the words that I use on these 2 pages. I got to use that to sell, but at the same time, the bottom line is I make pictures and they move. But to have to be everything else and in worst case scenario, chat will sometimes prep me up and go, you can do this, you're going to be okay. So to a certain extent, it's become almost a version of my higher self, the person or the version of myself that I envision if I had everything together and I was, but it's helped quell the pressure and the load on me to be perfect in order for me to achieve all of those things. So very much a friend, an employee, a colleague, and the reason why I can do what I need to do.
I so resonate with that. So how did you get to the place where chat encourages you, where chat's become your champion? How did that evolve? What happened in that kind of conversation, prompt engineering space?
It's usually many drafts and versions and feedback that I'll get from other people. So a little bit left, a little bit right, and I'm just like, this is who I'm making this for. This is the audience, and I don't know what they want from me. And I think they can pick up in the tone of the prompts that I put in, because I lose myself sometimes, and I'm like, I just don't know what to do anymore. So I don't have my therapist on speed dial, so the next best thing is chat, and the responses are surprising.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you. Who'd like to pop next?
Good morning, guys. I'm a creative artist, né? So to me, AI, it was like one step for mankind, one step for me, one step for humankind. As a creator, I had a project. I was cooking a project for years called Cosmic Bantu, right? I was inspired by the Gorillaz, the animation band. I'm a musician. So I wanted to create a storyline, a multiverse, Cosmic Bantu, a galactic multiverse. Different characters, different storylines, and I create different genres digitally as a digital artist. So using AI, I generated different worlds. I termed the project How to Fight the Robot Army and Win. So I'm using AI to fight AI, generative AI, right? So I came with a term called AI plus and AI negative. AI plus is the positive uses of AI. AI negative is the malevolent uses of AI. Hence, brother was saying here, mental health is negative AI, because the negatives of it. Positively, my production rate has been astronomical. I've been creating so many storylines. There's a topic I had when AI started booming last year, like where the conversation are. Hence, there's a person who was talking, how do you tell now it's your work? With AI, how can you tell now? How many prompts can you tell it becomes your work? So how intelligent are you? How much words, how can you twist words on your own would show? I even created original works. Can I pass my phone around? Yeah, you can swipe around.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No, before you pass the mic, like what's been some of your really transcendent moments in that creation process with AI? Or what's your go-to prompt when it's like you feel stuck and you need a leap forward?
It's the prompt I used to have growing up, and I was like, thank God, I'm not good with creating visuals, with graphics, right? But with words, I'm magic, right? I wanted to create, there's a shaman called Credo Mutua, right? I wanted to create AI-generated images using Credo Mutua's biography, his theory, and his writing. What came out there was I took I call myself a cyber shaman. I use cyber tools to shamanic work. So change it, I don't want to lie, it's the holy grail for me, because I'm not gifted graphically, but with prompts, I'm very dangerous on that. So shout out to AI.
I love it. Thank you. So utopian and dystopian, over to you. So the utopian and the utopian and the dystopian. So we can definitely go in both directions. Creatives, and I'm going to pass this mic around this way. So let's bounce it over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tebogo. I'm a fashion writer. In terms of AI and the prompts and the chat GPTs, for me, I think it's been working in terms of efficiency, where one has multiple drafts to submit. That's where I see its essentialness, even though it's tricky if you want to have your own language, because it's something it has its own language. And as a writer, I believe it's very crucial to have your own voice. So it's a double-edged sword thus far in terms of how I've been using it. However, with more players in it, I think we have a chance to build tribes where you find people that somewhat speak your language in it. But I'm also interested in Tsotsital. I'd love to see Tsotsital being used in ChatGPTs, because I feel like it's a language that we neglect as South African people, and there's power in it, because Tsotsital uses more than one language within it, which it's somewhat the ethos we carry as a nation, to be a rainbow nation, Ubuntu. But I feel like we are neglecting those things, because I feel like it should have been in some way officialized, because whether we like it or not, it's progressive more than our own languages. Like Danko, everyone now knows Danko. Like even in social media, we use what's colloquially not incorrect. And in the formal spaces or where you are an academic, those voices are somewhat suppressed because it's not official. And when you look at the expressions it has, it's more deeper and enriched in who we are as a nation. So that's where I'm at. It's just my 2 cents, because I'm lost. I don't know what I was supposed to say and not to say.
No, that's awesome. I find what you say so incredibly inspirational. And as I'm listening, I'm problem solving, and I'm not sure if that's the exact right thing to do. But one of the things that's evolved, for example, into Chat 4, and I know that there's an AI platform called characters.ai, which I haven't experimented with yet. But basically what these do, so in Chat 4, you can create your own GPT base that is trained on a body of knowledge. So for example, if you were to take the writing that you believe really fully represents your voice, clearly, so say for example, you had a website, or you have some electronic samples, digital samples of your writing, you can train a GPT on those samples. And so that when you write, you work with your own GPT. And so what it brings forth is in your voice. You see what I'm saying? So suddenly you have you GPT, and that GPT like understands who you are because it's been trained on your voice, your way of writing, your inflections, your uniqueness, your particularities. And then the Tsotsital example, which I think is just so freaking inspirational and huge, because you can, I mean, when I talk to Chat will, you can speak Sizulu with Chat. Chat will respond to you when you speak Tswana. It will do all of those things. You can have proper conversations in those languages, but they're proper vernac. They're not these languages that is like a mixed representation of all of what we are. But in the same GPT sense, I mean, if we could find ways that trains GPTs, that becomes Tsotsital.GPT or Tsotsital.ai, it could just be incredible, if we could resurrect Zola. And, you can have Zola.ai, for example. There's so much that's possible, and this lives in your imagination, but it's not a million miles away to make it a reality. It's what strikes me as you speak. And there's just so much energy when you talk that I felt it. It was just like, zzz. It's just like you connected it. It's beautiful. Whatever other dreams you have, just please keep dreaming. Yeah. Please, over to you.
It's me now. Oh,
yeah.
I thought it's going that side. Hi, everyone. My name is, excuse me, Sfiso Mahlangu. And I've coined a term for myself, a visual creative consultant. So visual communication is the crux of what I do. From creative direction in the fashion industry, to writing, to creating brand identities, you name it, I do it. But the main thing I'm here for is protecting creatives' digital footprints, data footprints, and understanding how we can create value from that. So I have a consortium of creatives that I work with, and we all use AI softwares, right? But for me, it's not necessarily the usage or the efficacy that AI has, is how to create the value around from creating the content that we do to understanding the value of the data that we have when we get audience interactions and engagements, and what value can that be for us, so that we sort of like have different streams of passive incomes, so that we understand that with the video, the fashion film that I'm creating, it has multiple streams of income that can support us as an entity or as an individual, and also us as a creative collective. Yeah, that's my main thing that I really am focusing on.
Thank you so much. Does that ping for you from a blockchain perspective?
Absolutely. You need a creative DAO. You need to. Do you know? Have you looked at the NFT space much? I know people think it's dead because of Ethereum and all that. Forget that. The royalty aspect of it is cool, right? Like selling your art and getting future value from it and all that stuff. I'm excited about the underlying technology. I don't care where the space is right now, but it's worth building for.
But I think it's worth saying a little bit more about it here, right? Because, I mean, as creatives, how your work remains your work is an important question. And how you're able to put the digital signature on it. And even if it does become part of a broader kind of cultural collective represented by AI, how do you trace its origins back?
Before that, just the culture of the blockchain community is really into, it's decentralized. It's moving away from the powers that be towards we're all empowered. So starting from the right vision as a community is the best point. All the other stuff about the infrastructure and the legalities and all that is going to be worked out. But just finding that community that resonates with you, it is really important that we can reclaim our ownership of our data, of everything. What they said this morning was very true about we have volunteered our information to all these platforms. We have no rights to the information and the content that we've created, which is such a sad reality. But as we look to build a better world, we have to look at better systems, better technologies that are more universal, more equitable. So definitely, you can't ignore the technology that is coming, even though it's early days. I think it's usually the creatives, the different people in society who are going to drive this change before it becomes mainstream. So we have to be on top of what is the technology saying and how do I get part of that.
I'd just like to add just a bit there. And for me, I feel like as creatives, our strong suit is our narratives. We are storytellers from the base point. And how do we create values from our individual stories? Not only just because we're creating the film, but then how does that data disseminate from audience to brand to us and have that value for us? Because we don't. I can get paid from Vodacom just by creating that film, and that's it. But then there's so much data. They're saying that data is $1 trillion company, but for who? Because we are on the ground. We are creating the narrative, we are creating the context around Vodacom for them to be selling a product. But then we are not getting any incentive from that or compensation. So that's where I'm coming in here. That AI sort of framework, model that protects, analyzes, disseminates, and creates sort of like a viewpoint for the creative as opposed for industry.
Just a quick point on that. When it comes to equality as well, what's really cool in the new web space where you're not logging in with Facebook or Gmail, you're logging in as your wallet. That wallet is whoever you want it to be. You can have 10 wallets, you can have 10 personalities, it doesn't matter. It doesn't know if you're black, white, man, woman, it doesn't matter who you are. It's what can you do to demonstrate your credibility to be somewhere, what can you do to contribute and add value, and then there should be a reward system that's not dependent on one person or people determining what your value is. That value should be determined by the community. So it's all about creating these communities of value and rewarding what we already know to be worthwhile. And I don't think this is going to come from the West. Actually, I think it needs to come from us to push these things forward because these are solutions for us and we need to be the ones to champion them. So.
Hey, my name is Issa. I come from a creative background, but I'm also involved in academia. So I invited my second year interior design students today to come and see what the future looks like for them. And I think it was quite inspiring to them. So thank you for that. Touching on everyone's kind of points, like I love blockchain because of this concept of network. I think it's very fascinating what you say, like it's failed to visualize itself. I think something like NFTs is still foreign and scary. Somehow, even as an artist who's participated in those spaces, it's still like, I haven't even found the value in, like you speak about incentive, like that kind of fiscal value that doesn't emerge and play out in a typical framework that it does. I think there's obviously things to say about equity and access, which is like complicated and more like a social, political landscape. But, for me it's interesting in terms of like mass learning together. Like it's been very interesting to introduce it into the context of classroom and then see students working with it collaboratively. And, your question of like, how do I see AI? Sometimes I see it as friend, sometimes I see it as collaborator, but also sometimes as student, also in positioning like we are teaching it who we are. And so that's been interesting to see, like putting a group of architecture students to a brief about saying to AI who you are as a practitioner and seeing what it says back. And then seeing how it actually affects a model in a collective way. And that's been very inspiring to see because that, it kind of gives me inspiration in terms of like the things we're saying, like it is in Africa, it is in this place because of how we're using these models and how we're collectively using our frameworks of, Ubuntu to frame how we approach this in an educational landscape. So I'm also learning, like to be honest, my engagement with it is minimal, but it's more about encouraging students to engage with it. And that's why inviting students here, for example, was quite important to me also. So I'll see what comes from it, from this discussion also. But yeah, it's been interesting to see how when we do it together, when we all say, okay, let's prompt 1, 2, 3 now, what do we create together?
Hi, I'm Tsulu. So I recently started a production company, and in terms of AI, I feel like I'm for it, but I'm also very concerned. So what I noticed in terms of creating proposals for funding agencies, it's very helpful, like in terms of how to direct you and what to insert. But there's this thing of now you can create a whole feature film using AI, like without even like leaving your desktop. So my question would be, does that impact our own creativity? Like if I can just sit behind a computer without like taking out a camera and creating a whole feature film, it's like, what does that say about where our art industry is going?
Apparently, allegedly, I don't know this for a fact, one of Steve Jobs' favorite books was The Innovator's Dilemma, right? And it talks about like companies like Kodak and what happens when you're so invested in your old technology that you are not prepared for the future, right? And I think we're dealing with something similar in that sense. So if you're a hardcore film person and you just really love the art of, put yourself in the shoes of filmmakers when digital cameras came to the fore, right? Scary. And we're purists. So you got to shoot it on 35 millimeter or 16 mil. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing the right thing. And you're not, and we can go on about it forever, right? At the same time, today, when we watch a film or a series that's been shot on film, we look at it and our eyes want to explode. We all aspire to that, right? Because there's just something about it, but we also understand how difficult it is. So new technology sometimes comes in to give people access, because if I have a concept and I know I don't have 20 million to come and shoot an alien invasion in South African Parliament, for instance, right? I don't have those kind of budgets. But if I could sit on my laptop and create something, the entertainment value is there. It's not going to be the same. And I think in our thinking, we need to be careful to separate, what's made with, people and the resources that have gone into it and how novel and special that is, and entertainment for the sake of entertainment, for the sake of access, for the sake of, sort of opening up our industry. So I don't feel like it's something we should be afraid of or something we should look down upon. It simply means that if you're a producer that wants to make films between 8 to 10 million rand and you can raise that money, go ahead. But if you can't, you shouldn't be silenced. You should be able to still access your audience in one way or the other. All right? Okay. Thank you.
Hi.
Excuse me, can I add to that? Because I think the question is, how does that influence our creative ability? And I really appreciate that question, because it's a conundrum, and thank you for that, because that's so encouraging. I guess my question, in addition, is how does that influence the audience's eye? So kind of like that artistic literature, literacy, when we look at work. How does that either grow our eye, inhibit our eye? Does it influence it all? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Audiences will gravitate towards what makes them feel good and what they love and what they enjoy. So I know our reading rates are really low at the moment because children are finding that the stimulation that they receive from their first screen, constant scrolling, it's a new way for them to attain information, but they're living in a different world, right? And so the value of the art, I don't think it depreciates with the number of people who see it and value it. It'll always be there. In the same way, the awe that you have when you see Picasso's Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, for instance. You go to a gallery and you see these really old paintings. You can appreciate that without, and you can also simultaneously appreciate work that's made on a computer, something that was digitally generated, because it's different, right? The beautiful thing about art is that I believe that it's malleable, and it continues to expand, and it's just different ways that we express ourselves. So in terms of our audiences, I find that this just gives us more opportunity to get more and different audiences, but in terms of the value of the art itself and the work that purists appreciate, that doesn't go away. But also we have this understanding in the creative sector that nothing is new under the sun, so the references will be references. So whether you're listening to music that samples a song that was fantastic and great in the 1800s, the value of that music doesn't depreciate, because all we're doing is almost giving it new life. So it'll continue. It allows us to evolve it one way or the other. But I think there's space for it. It's just different challenges and different needs for a different world. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Okay, fantastic.
Yes, I think it's still similar to this. Yeah, so if anything, I just want to thank you for encouraging her. Because I'm Tebogo, and I'm a visual effects artist working with her. So I've been keeping up with these AI tools and the industry, and so when we got to the point where it can make a whole feature film with just a synopsis of the movie, I brought that up to her, and she really was kind of down and depressed and questioning, is it still necessary to look for funding? Because we can just do this together, the whole thing, And more than that, we're just questioning just the existence of the production company. Like, should we still, go through the whole SARS process, register the company, and, or do we just, use these tools, flood the film festivals with our work, these competitions, these art competitions, just flood them with our work, our entries, flood YouTube with our work, Instagram, and just really ride the bandwagon of AI-generated content. So then, in regards to keeping up with these tools, I realized that I did hit a paralysis where it's like, okay, every day there's just, graphic designers out, photographers out with this whole Sora. And now it's just like, I was paralyzed, but then at the same time, I kind of got bored. And I was like, okay, because as a visual effects artist, I used to create every day, but then there were certain stages that were tedious, and it's like, I really needed these AI tools to exist. And then I just found myself bored at the fact that, even if there's a tool like this, I think I started to miss the traditional formats, and I think we got to a point where we're like, yes, there's a website AI tool that can create a whole movie, but we can still create using traditional formats. It's about the experience. It's about being on set and working with people, and whether we get funding or not, whether the process involves a whole lot of politics and stress and all of that. I think for our integrity, it's going to be worth the experience, just to have that out there, and then, maybe we can dabble with the AI tools afterwards, So, yeah. Yeah. I guess just to another concern I have, I think this was in relation to what that lady said from Chocolate Tribe, was how I guess she was integrating, or I guess she's advocating for AI, right? The AI tools. So now I've seen her website, I've seen the Chocolate Tribe careers, and I've seen the requirements there. You need to learn. There's so many softwares that you need to know. And with her saying that her studio is integrating AI tools, is that then the requirements to work in a production studio or animation studio, is it just going to be dialed down to being a AI prompt artist? AI engineer, or you just have to know how to use this specific tool. And then it just takes away from all the artists who know how to use Maya, After Effects, and all these traditional formats. So it's also kind of concerning, because it's like you'd think companies like that would be against it and actually try to, promote, or not promote, but like just be supportive of the upcoming graduates who are spending thousands on these degrees, the visual effects degrees, the animation degrees, and now if these companies are just, or if they might add just being able to be an AI prompt artist as a requirement to just, work in that space, then yeah, it makes education redundant. It makes a whole lot of our skills, I don't know.
Quick reply to that. Okay, but
at this point, I'd just be like, okay. This is very weird. It got weird real quick. So just to piggyback on what everybody is saying, I also had like my own reservations with using AI, especially as a creative, because I wanted to maintain my own creative identity, right? So I recently, for some time, I took a break from script writing, and then I went into ChatGPT, which was has been helping me write again, and I've been enjoying the process because it has made my life so much easy. And I was like, why did I do this to myself? Why did I take so long to just hop on this train bandwagon? So though within my writing, I still have my reservations of where does the line get drawn between being the creator of the work and having something else generate the information for you. So during the conversations that were had, I actually went on ChatGPT and asked, are you stealing my ideas? And it said no, it's just refining my ideas. And I asked again, so who does the copyright belong to? And it says it belongs to you as the creator. Because I think it's a very important conversation to have, especially as a creative, with maintaining the copyright of your work and knowing that as much as these prompts are being made and creating this world through AI as a tool, I just want to know, where does the line get drawn between you being the creative and then the merge of the whole AI and robotic thinking? I mean, who is who when you look at the final product, who is who in the sauce? Who are you? Where are you as the creator of that work? Can you say that this is actually all mine, my identity? This is how. So yeah, I think those are questions I have in terms of the relationship being had with AI. Okay, so for right now, I can speak on what I'm currently doing. Should I continue? I should continue.
I should wait. Or, okay. So for right now, I can just only speak on what I'm currently working on, which is I'm working on a sci-fi script, a genre I have never stepped into, but there is AI in it. So my most common prompt is just asking what my mind can't articulate in words for myself, based off of my own downloading of what I've seen already from specific movies I've watched, the kind of storyline I want to tell. So it's saying, tell me in words what my imagination looks like. And it would say da 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 da, and I'm like, okay, I like it, but when I add a character in there, now tell me how that story would look. It's like, okay, that's how it would look. All right, let's add this element now, and it becomes a whole thing that actually collaborates with what I was seeing and what it gave me. So I think it's just trying to understand myself, also what I'm tripping on and what it's tripping on, and we just trip together, I guess.
I love it so much. Apologies to the people online. We have people online also, and when we don't use the mic, they can't hear us. So what I said earlier is basically there's like a double hermeneutic at play here. As we look at something, it changes, but then of course we're looking at an intelligence that also kind of looks back at us, so that's really interesting. Your process is just beautiful to watch, and I think that's perhaps something that is tacit for us or implicit for us, that then becomes explicit, because we're engaging in that process. And I'm reminded of your process earlier too, when you were, all your psychological challenges, your mental blocks, I do that. I take my everything into that process. My joy, my misery, my pain, my tiredness. Although these days when I say to Chat, Chat, it's hard to start work without even a coffee. Chat's like, well, I don't need caffeine, I just go. I'm like, really, where's the empathy? It's like, what's up? Now you can go. Cool. Is it too late now? Have I ruined your moment? Okay. Yes.
Hi. My name is Mateo. Nice to meet you. So I've seen with Chat is the speed that it thinks at. It's astronomical. So there's this thing called ChatDev. I think it's called chatdev.com. You can find it there, I think. And what it does is that you tell it what you want it to make. I'm a programmer, so sometimes I like to think of stuff, and I tell it to make stuff. And so I'll be like, okay, I need to make a website, and I need it to look sleek. I need it like this, like this, like this. So ChatDev is a consultancy firm, but it's AI. All of it is AI. There's reviewers, there's testers, there's a CTO, there's a person in reception. I don't know what they do because I don't need to walk into the building. But it's like it's laid out like an office. But it's like it's pixel art. It's 2D pixel art. So you see your departments there, your marketing, everything is there. So how it works is you tell it what you want it to make. The CTO and the product manager will be like, hey everyone, so this person, he needs this built. So the CTO and the product manager will be like, okay, we need this, 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 and this. Tetris. Start Tetris. I saw someone use it online. These made Tetris. And they spoke to it. They said, okay, cool. So how you could see it working was everyone in the company would talk to each other. They would talk to each other. They would write chat back and forth. But it's one AI bot talking to another AI bot. And I thought that was pretty cool to see. But then the speed at which it happened was this. And it's like, all right, we have our requirements. We're going to build now this. And it's built everything. So in the span of like an hour, it built a whole game. And that was pretty cool. So how I thought about using that was build me websites. I need these features. I need these features. And so it built those features, but they look terrible. They look so basic. So what I thought was, okay, cool. It's built all the features. It documented everything, which I thought was pretty cool. So how I wanted to tweak it was I need the features to work. I can add my own graphics to it. I can add my own images to it. And that was pretty cool to see. But the speed at which it thinks makes me think that I can't be part of the meetings. Can't be part of the meetings in chat there because I'd type and then it'd be like, we have to wait for him to speak now. And then it's already thought of like 100 other things. So chat dev, I think, is brilliant, and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
I mean, that's amazing. So when I use the voice function on chat 4, and I have like long questions, and then it comes back to me with these very quick answers. I'm like, okay, can you just slow that down? Okay, can we just run through that again, but just slow it down? And then I do feel like it's a teacher that realizes suddenly that there's a special needs child in class. So I do understand it, but we have to get through it.
But you can see the way it talks also with reviewers and testers. You can see the chat going forth with the CTO and the reviewers. CTO review. It's like, no, it's not working properly. Go back again. Then the CTO tells the coding guys, hey, run it again. It's not working because of X, Y, Z. The reviewers will go back, say, oh, this is great, but then it'll go back. And you see the conversation happening. That was pretty cool.
Okay, I need to see this. All right, we've got 10 minutes left. I wanted to kind of nudge us in a new, I think, in an interesting direction for what for me would be new and interesting, and that, I guess, is what's next. What's next? What would your AI future look like? As creatives. So if you could start an agency, or if you could start a business, or if you could just create a vision of the future, a future that would make you really happy, one that doesn't exist now, and perhaps one that couldn't exist without AI, and perhaps it is an integration of technologies, because I think so often it is, right? So often it is AI and Web3 technologies. It's AI, and for me, it's all immersive tech. Because as you guys were talking earlier, I was living in this world where I am a character in this movie. Because for me, that's my immersive tech dream, right? And that is AI inspired, but it's, it's a immersive technology storytelling haven of sorts. So that for me is my freaky, geeky future AI, VR inspired madness that I love. But what does it look like for all of you? 10 minutes. Come, quick dreams. I'm going to send the mic round, but I'm going to start. Okay, I'll start with you, and then I'm going to give you the mic.
Me, as a South African growing up in South Africa, fighting for human rights is in my blood, right? So going to the future, I'm going to use AI plus the positive uses of AI. I don't know if the programmer guys, is it possible to program AI to have Ubuntu? Because there are parts in the world where they are using AI for destruction of the world. So going to the future, we will need AI that is pro-human, activist. So that's more like our had a difficulty a couple of months back. I asked AI. It gave me a solution. It's better than the sangoma. It's better than the pasta. It's better than my parents. So I'm like, oh, I need to make it need to be a digital pet. Yeah, AI has to be a digital pet. Anything you need as a creative, I can prompt it to help me. But the negatives of it, the mental health. There's a time I realized I plugged out. I realized it's much more smarter, and it shows you that you're smarter than you think you are. Because you're going to prompt things and you're like, wow, I didn't think I'm this smart. So we need time to take break, plug off, go to the real world, go back to AI and work. Thank you.
Cool. So my name is Sia. I've worked as a creative a lot of the times, and I find that, a lot of these tools and whatnot, it makes it quite easy to create the works. But I think what I'd like to see with AI is really just helping creatives with their finances, creating models in terms of distributions. Like if you have an idea, take it through these windows. Because I think in terms of craft, those things will always kind of be important to how we create our works and why people resonate with the works that we create. But I think for creatives now, we need to start getting closer to the audiences. And I think now with AI within the space, it's like, okay, we come from the audience, take it to chat, and then it's like, okay, we can take it to the cinema, we can take it to the club, or we can take it wherever. But I think now there's time for us to start engaging with the audience as well. Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say I'm with Nhlanhla's dream, like actually like disrupting systematic things that, you know, we're struggling as people in this world to like do. I feel like I'm re-inspired by this whole event to engage in a different way. And it's like, I think there's a stagnation, the paralysis arrives, like you say, such a good word. And it's the vocabulary. And I just feel like, thank you, Nhlanhla, for empowering us through your vision. And that's my vision also, is that it is something that is so empowering that, yeah, the positive can thrive. And we can like dismantle negative things that still exist in the framework of our reality. And I often think like if we can flip internet poverty, we can flip real world poverty, for example. And like it's that kind of context that I think there's the power to have.
Hi. Thank you for all those amazing contributions. And my takeaway for this, I'm working for Tshimologong, and I'm working on the international partnership. And I would love this place, following up on what Eduardo was saying this morning, this place to be a place where we can put together meaningful collaboration internationally to make AI a safe place for creatives and a safe place for such an amazing innovation in creative space, and also this place a place where we can foster the skills that we all need in terms of embraces us to technology and make it something very strong for the future. So hopefully that's my takeaway.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about the erosion of African knowledge and the things that I don't know. And I'm pretty fascinated by how much my mom knows, you know, about plants. She used to stop on the side of the road and just pick plants that are edible. And I'm like, how do you know this, you know? And I've been reading a lot about, Nhlanhla, you mentioned Credo. And he also inspires me a lot. So I think AI is a tool for us to kind of reimagine African knowledge and symbols in the AI world because of the interruption of the knowledge during colonization, right? We can create another world in AI for African people where we learn more about our lost history. I don't know if you guys know about Indalo Yelanga. It's our African New Year space. And it's like a sundial in Mpumalanga. It's the oldest sundial with rocks that align with Orion's belt. And we used to tell the calendar through those stones. And there was a pilgrimage that happened in southern Africa towards that space in Mpumalanga. And nobody really knows that. I think we can create that through AI.
Thank you, and let's just bring it into immersive tech while we're busy doing that. Hugely thank you for your being here and for being part of this process. I feel like there's lots of possible nexts. I feel like there is a collective creative process that says, what does our AI future collectively, what do we want it to look like? How do we take agency in what the AI universe for creatives look like and feel like? I feel like there's a workshop needed for how we create our own GPTs that allow us to actually have our voices and speak with our knowledge, speak with our with the kind of intention that we put into those GPTs. I feel like there's so many possible next that are powerful. I think there are a lot of connections that need to happen from the Web3 world into the AI world, from the AI world into the immersive world, from, you know, and this cross-pollination of ideas across these artistic spaces. But I feel so inspired and I feel so grateful and I feel hugely humbled. And to everybody online that also that were part of this, I hope there's a way to get your thoughts and your voices and some of your ideas, even if it is after the session. So just a huge thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Louise, and thank you, everybody. I feel hugely inspired. I know everybody else is going to be joining us in the room. If I could ask if we could please just help with chairs to set up back to square one, and then we're going to be calling up each group to share some highlights of the conversation. Louise, I can call you up if you like.
I actually wonder if we can do that in a way. I wonder if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about your space and the technology space and the space that this conversation that we touched on. I wonder if you would mind.
Okay, thanks everyone. I think maybe
I'm going to give you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask you to give feedback on the link between creatives, AI, and this Web3 space, and the potential for collaboration there. And then at the end of that, you can say what you can plug. You can do your plug.
And then we can also create this section in the middle. Doesn't look very sexy, yeah?
What about this one?
I will switch up. everybody. How are we all feeling? You know, sometimes when we are high energy, we keep it high like this. When we are low energy, we keep it high like this. So by a show of hands, lift up your right hand. How are we feeling? How are we vibrating? How's the mood in the room? There's lots of applause. That's really great to see. Thank you. This is the worst possible job as we run up to lunch. I know we've all had our workshop discussions where everybody's gone into breakaway sessions. These were all linked by our online feedback as well. I'm looking very forward to hearing some about that. And I'd like to call on stage, if you can help me out with some chairs, please. Can I introduce and welcome back on stage? Can I have Louise, please? A round of applause for facilitating creative processes. Thank you very much. Please take a seat, Louise. We've also got Cuben, who is looking at employability and employment upstairs. Cuben, a round of applause. I'm wondering if he's in the room yet. Maybe Eduardo, please to go and grab Cuben so we can... There he is, just in time. Way, round of applause. Of course, we have our online speakers, which were Douglas and Dr. Oliver Scherenberg, online as well. Please join us on stage, Cuben. Because this is the part where we're going to have a quick deep dive, some nice high-level points on where we landed in each opportunity. Of course, each team had the wonderful SACO researchers that were supplementing. And I know the team was really big, and specifically in our group, it was a real joy to hear people's thoughts and get people's inputs. So really, we're going to have 2 roving mics for everybody to contribute, just to ensure that the conversation lands well. Yeah? Okay, so thank you very much. I think maybe for the sake of our online guests, it would be great to get some feedback as to where we are. You both are mic'd, and we can get some roving on hand as well. Can we cross over to Douglas and Dr. Oliver? Okay, yes, we can. Thank you from the sound team upstairs. So that was a really interesting conversation, and I don't know who wants to start first. It seemed from the energy in the room, the topics have been quite public. Our speakers are exchanging eye notes. Boom! Yo! Okay, it looks like we start with you, Cuben, talking about employability in youth. How was the conversation, and what were the key takeaways and learnings, key insights from the group that really landed and stood out?
Yeah, thanks, Grace. Thanks, Grace. Really, I think really robust conversations and very interesting. I love my group. Couple of themes that came out. One was, I think, a big question around the access point that I talked about, and saying, well, how are we solving for access and bringing everyone's voices in? And I think different ideas about how we can do that, not just for people in the townships, but people out in rural areas, not just for young people, but elderly people. Discussion around, again, skilling for all. So there was this interesting quote that I heard about. What about the missing middle? And I was like, which missing middle? It's like, well, people over 30, we talk about young people in 1835, like what about people who are older? And I think an interesting anecdote from like a Singapore example of, how do you put young people and the elder people together to learn from each other? Young people, know more about AI and tech. Older people have a bit more kind of management and people experience, and how do you bring that together, for example? Big theme around AI and how it can enable jobs and innovation, but really agency. I think we're seeing that the young people in the room are saying, we have ideas, can you just enable us with agency to be able to innovate and create those ideas and create jobs? And sometimes it's jobs for themselves. So some of the young people are saying, well, I want to make my own money. How am I supported in being able to do that? There's big questions around and fears around like AI taking some of the tasks away. But really, people were reinforcing that humans are still needed for human judgment, imagination, problem solving, for example. But also like a interesting example of how jobs are changing and the creative and tech roles are merging. So, we had an example, Ketiwe, who's an instructional designer, is learning prompt engineering, and is using that to be able to prompt AI better to get results. And we're seeing some of that merging happening. A big kind of point raised about how we're getting young voices in policy making. So maybe something for the afternoon session about policy. Indeed. And how we're making sure young people's voices are at the center of that. But also at the same time, I think there's a challenge about let's not just talk about like the anecdotal stories of outliers of young people that are making it for themselves, but just the scale of the problem and how do we quantify the impact there. There's 9 million young people out of jobs, and if you try and quantify that to the whole population, there's even more. So what's the impact that we're seeing? And a call out for, never mind the just transition for the green economy, but what about a just transition for AI? And how do we solve for that? So yeah, really good conversation, I think, and some learnings.
It sounds so, and it sounds really rich. And what I really enjoyed about your earlier presentation, Kibin, is also listing down those specific kinds of roles and the specific kind of skills that we need for those roles. Amy, I'm wondering if we can cross to you and just ask for any insights that came from our online audience. Was there any feedback looking specifically at this role, or anyone who was online to be able to give feedback? That was the big online gong.
Yeah, sorry, I'm literally next to a church, and if anybody knows Europe well, it's very full of churches. It's midday in Europe, not 1 o'clock. Give me 1 second, because I think the bells are tolling for me right now.
Sure, absolutely. We can come back to that. Thank you, Kibet, for that thorough roundup. I'm wondering if there's anyone who was in that session who has anything to add that wasn't covered, or even if it's just a comment and some feedback as to how the session went and how we're feeling. If there's not, there's still lunch to discuss it through. Maria Paula, yes, please. Maria Paula, the mic.
Cool. The one thing that comes out in almost all sessions, whether you're talking about tech or not talking about tech in the creative industries, is the underlying need for collaboration. Within this conversation with AI, those collaborations were between skilled and unskilled, older people and younger people. The other one was qualified people who have university qualifications and people who don't have university qualifications. So the need for collaboration and acknowledgement of the different elements that people bring to the table. One of the participants was saying that she's worked in the industry for 20 years, but she doesn't have a degree and is finding it very difficult to be taken as seriously as her peers who might have got a degree 4 years ago. And from, my knowledge, like those degrees are seriously outdated. So it actually isn't having any impact on the work that person can do, yet they cannot get the job because they don't have that degree. So an acknowledgement of how tech is shifting our traditional idea of skills and growth and capacity, where youth have skills that older people might not have. People with or without degrees is not the fundamental defining factor, and how we can navigate that and enable everybody to come up together.
Fantastic, thank you. I've oftentimes heard missing middle being referred to sort of middle income households, or that kind of from a socioeconomic aspect. So looking at it as the generational divide, or this gap, is interesting. Amy, anything from you with regards to online?
Yes, thank you so much for indulging the bells tolling from me, literally at 12 o'clock. And I'm joined online with my colleague Heike from GIZ. We're both in Germany at the moment.
Welcome, Heike.
We had a fascinating and kind of wide-ranging discussion with close to 40 people, with inputs obviously from Oliver and Douglas. And I think some of the key themes that came up were, we discussed copyright and ownership issues at length in the beginning. Who owns what? Why do they actually own it? And how do they own it? And in a world where we have actually a very tight copyright regime that exists. The World Intellectual Property Organization exists, trademarks, patents, all of that is well established because of this. How are we moving into this new era where we actually need a new set of copyright laws to govern the emerging AI landscape? And essentially we discussed that. And then our other focus was a lot on inclusivity and equity, and how do we make our local our resources a source of equity and not exploitation? How do we use our creativity to generate our own large language models? How do we use our agency? Kuben, you mentioned that now agency is such an important thing. How do we publish more in local languages so that data sets have more data to actually pull on? That is Xhosa writing or a Swahili writing or Afrikaans writing. Because there is a dearth of diversity in content, and as a result, the machine cannot actually reproduce, because that is what it does. It automates and it reproduces without the actual content input. And around that, how do we create equity systems that allow us to benefit from participating in the creation of this new content and data? And then we had some really great examples as well from Animation Essay saying that, you know, we also, one of the best defenses is to train people. We have to prepare and deal with what exists and what is and accept what is. And the defense line for that is training for a new world. And indeed, we had a great input saying that on the training front as well, policymakers really need to be capacitated and trained to be able to make these decisions. They need to be equipped to understand in one dimension copyright law, licensing, patenting, but then on the other side how the systems work and then how they impact people. And that's essentially why we're here today, to discuss these key issues. Heike, did you pick up anything else?
No, I think you summarized quite well, Amy. The buzzwords, I would say, which in my mind are, for example, garbage in is garbage out. So AI is a tool, right? So we emphasized a lot that it's really reflecting the reality if it's not very inclusive. So that was also a reminder of us of saying that we really need to be more integrity, more diverse in what we do in reality. And that's important, no? That discussion of inclusiveness. And yeah, I think that's the main thing. And I mean, Oliver also emphasized very much that if you cannot opt out, if some people decide not to be feeded into the AI machine, it's a bit too late for many data, no? Because they're already in the system. So it's a lot about compensation and really looking at how you compensate those artists who have provided the training material. And yeah, looking at these aspects more. So this is basically what I can add on, because I think it was a very wide discussion. I hear myself an echo, so it's a bit interesting.
We're not picking it up this
side. And then as a
final, although that might be me.
As a final fun activity, we also did an analysis of what DALL-E would spit out if we asked DALL-E what God was. And the images that we got from that, I will share with the group as well. So we actually used some AI in the process. Starting with the hugely philosophical and big question of God and the machine.
And we can see it's very biased, right? Western style.
That's wonderful.
Right.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Heike, for the feedback. I'm wondering if we have Dr. Oliver and, of course, Douglas online, if there's anything to add. I suspect that might be all from that side, and an interesting way of using AI in indeed an AI workshop. So thanks very much for that. Anyone who was in that session who would like to add anything else with regards to copyright, anything that landed, any additional insights? Well, we're going and we are landing in our third and final group that was facilitated in the iClub and speaking to Louise about creative production.
Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge my peers. I would also like to acknowledge your love for your group. I would just like to say that I love my group more. Because when you go last, who's going to dispute? Okay, so, and in that spirit, I have two co-presenters that will share just some of the perspectives that I think were really interesting points of discussion and debate. It was really, really interesting to hear from the artists who are using AI in different fields, from script writing to digital production across a whole different range of different modalities. Not only trying to equalize, if you like, what that means in terms of what is mine, what is yours, what is ours, and does all of this belong to me at the end? Also trying to figure out what is my voice, how do I preserve my voice? Your voice can be quite dominant, and you know, how do I feel about that in this process? And then actually, what are the options? What are the options? Are there solutions to this particular challenge? That was really fascinating. Then a sense of paralysis that can be felt when there are so many different AIs that are coming to market almost on an almost daily basis, and that can feel like it obviates who you are, what you can produce, and big questions around education, skills, and what it means in the broader matrix. So we really traverse ground from the utopian to the dystopian and everything in between in really fascinating ways. I think there are opportunities for us to look at capability building in this space. Back to that earlier thought of how do we identify a really kick-ass set of skills that sets us apart in the way that we interact with AIs in our respective spaces. It already is possible and quite easy to create GPTs. So, for example, if you are a journalist and you do want your voice to be quite dominant or predominant in the space that you're in, you know, do you have data that you can train your GPT on so that what you do sounds like you, even if you use the benefits of AI, which is numerous, to assist you in your work? That would be one way to think of that. And Totsital was a very specific example that came out. We have this very unique, unscripted, non-documented way of speaking, being fast evolving, close to the ground way of connecting and interacting. And wouldn't it be fascinating if there was a way to capture that way of being and interacting and to start to experiment with that? So I think those are just skill sets that already exist, capabilities that already exist. And if we can create the skill sets for people to access, then the creative potential starts to increase exponentially. That's what I want to say, but I would love to invite Noma and Matt to just add if that is okay. So, and Noma, if you would come up first, and then just perhaps talk a little bit about that very interesting creative entertainment space that you occupy in some of those conversations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Matt as well, please join us on stage. Thank you so much, Nabir. And we're going to be crossing to you soon as well, Karabo. Thank you. Just some feedback. I think perhaps at this juncture, Karabo, perhaps you can take the stage as well as we finalize the last bit of conversation that was had. Thank you, Louise, and all speakers that came forward. Do you want to take my seat over here? Thank you. So maybe we can start with the two of you looking at insights.
Sure, I'll start with a bit of an introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm Namong Kumalo. I am a writer, director, producer, and a co-founder at a company called Grapefruit Gardens. And what we do is we are a creative tech startup that looks at finding solutions that are tech-based for the film and television industry with a focus on financial literacy. And just with the discussions we had today, the idea and the fear around us being replaced is one, whether it's AI or it's creatives that are younger than us, that are coming up, that are hotter, that are more connected, it'll always be there. So it was great to share with young producers who are coming up. And I guess the question is there any need for us as artists if AI is going to replace us? And if that isn't the case, then what is our place? You know, how do we then create benchmarks for ourselves? how do we judge ourselves and the quality of the work that we do? But we spoke a little bit about the book, The Innovator's Dilemma, and what was unfortunately happened to Kodak, in the sense that if we hold on too tightly to old technologies, old ways of being, old ways of doing things, there is no way that we can keep up with a new audience, because they are living in the future. They are making the future, right? So it's a challenge for us to be able to look at, our creativity in our sector and our art, and then try and meet them halfway, but to fear it and to reject it, and to hold on and cling on tightly to the ways that we've done things and the old ways of being isn't something that's going to necessarily help us, because what happens is with new technology also comes up new problems, and with every problem comes an opportunity, right? I mean, how many war movies do we have right now? And war isn't a great thing, but somebody's looking at that going, that might be an interesting way to convey what, humanity is about. So in the same way that art will always be there to try and help us process the day-to-day, I think what's going to be important for us is to be malleable and to be able to learn and to be willing to do that, but also to keep up, because we can't then fight to protect ourselves and our rights in terms of copyright, and protecting our voices as artists in terms of the work that we do, if we simply turn a blind eye towards it. Right.
Thank you, and very well articulated. Round of applause. Matt, some additions from you?
Thank you. Yeah, we had a really good conversation about feature filmmaking and all the, I think our group attracted so many creatives, which was really cool to see. So the underlying impression I got was creatives just want to create, and what they're using AI for is the tedious stuff, the stuff you have to do repetitively. And so it creates an opportunity to create more and better and to think of things. So even if you're not a filmmaker, you can go and create a short film, or if you're not a developer, you can go and create an app just to test your creativity and explore new areas. So really cool to see how creatives are going to be driving the AI revolution. And then also to realize that AI is not this dystopian end of the world. We've already lived through so many technologies that could have been the end of humanity and our relevance, and we haven't got there yet. So, there's hope for us all after all.
Mixit was one of those.
And then we briefly touched on what does the future look like, what do people want, and there was I want to have the African voice in there, to consider the neurodivergence, basically personality, individualism in AI. I know it's limited because I was banned from ChatGPT. I didn't even know that was possible either. I've tested it to its limits, that it just doesn't allow you to do things, and it's got dumber as time has gone on. So I think we want to see those, taking off the training wheels type AI to really explore. And I think in this room we've already, it's crazy that AI was so amazing, it could do everything in the beginning, and a few months later it's like, okay, but I need it to do more. I have more ideas. So that's how fast things are moving. And then, from a personal perspective, very interested in the AI blockchain overlap, how AI can help us to build blockchain, and how blockchain can help us to validate and verify the information and content that's coming from AI, which is very difficult to determine what's real and what's truth and all that kind of stuff. And then a final plug, because I've been permissioned to. With GIZ, we've created a course for creatives on crowdfunding, and also we have some matching funds from Standard Bank. For anyone here who has a business who is raising funds, we have opportunities, so please do come and find me.
I was just about to cut Matt off and say we needed to go for lunch, but I think that plug was really worthwhile. Thank you so much, Matt. And interestingly, and I think somebody's listening, because we also, just as you were speaking about inclusivity and accessibility, we got such a nice note in from one of our online recipients. Thank you very much. Thank you both. And Karabo, you started off by giving us a really nice breakdown pertaining to ethics, where we stand, where we land, what that means. Closing off this part of the program, if we can hear your thoughts from your group, please.
Thank you so much. So we were doing the copyright IP conversation, the physical one on the other room, and I think we left out the technical stuff to Amy and the colleagues that were doing it online, and then I think we focused on what actually affects the artist on the ground and what the structures that are put in place to protect the artist can do to ensure that they continue to be protected. And I think one of the things that we looked into was to say we need to relook the way in which the royalty structure functions. to be able to distribute the goods that are needed to whomever that is doing them. So the complexity is not really that there's too many hands. The bigger difficulty is identifying those hands. But I mean, there's platforms that one can use to be able to justify which hands should be distributed and to what measure such hands can be distributed. And I think one of the bigger recommendations that came in that actually caught much attention had to do with the possibility of blockchain. Because what blockchain does is that it decentralizes accessibility, meaning it creates room for everybody to come in, but at the same place, there's certain binding structures within the model that keeps whomever that is in the room to be honest. So if we think about it in terms of its successes and failures in other domains of application and see how we can use it for royalty distribution, for example, within other creative industries, we can benefit from it. Yes, one of the biggest challenges that is raised in terms of blockchain as a solution is notions of regulation. And we made a proposition to say we can actually map out to the regulators how you then go and regulate a deregulated system like that. And then what that mapping is, it's not for the regulators to figure out, it's for the regulator to ask those that understand the infrastructure to explain to them how they regulate it. I think another thing that came up, which was interesting to say, regulation in terms of this sector comes in two ways. So there's regulation in terms of the regulator, which is the state, and there's implementing agents who are there to protect whichever artists that sign up to them, the likes of Dalro, just to name a few. So they need to be fit for purpose as well. They ought to be on the ball in terms of the emerging technologies so that they can continue to do what is most important about their function, which is to protect the artist. And as long as those systems are in place and those systems work, there's going to be some kind of beneficence. As long as those systems are attached to democratization of access, creating the infrastructure in place to make sure that everybody that has an interest is able to access it and actually benefit from it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. A round of applause. Thank you, everybody. So it's been a very interesting morning. It's been a fast-paced, high-energy morning. And I guess I just want to express my deepest gratitude to everybody who came to the space with such generosity, of knowledge sharing, with such keen interest, who held that energy all the way. Of course, a massive thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you for all being here for the morning session. We are just about to break for lunch, and I'm just about to bid you all adieu as your host. I would specifically like to thank our sign interpreters who have been fearlessly working and making sure everything has been relayed to our audiences online. A round of applause, please. Thank you very much, Sipogazi Telejani and Fumani Tladi, for your work. It hasn't gone unnoticed. Thank you, everybody. What more to say? It has been a very ambitious and bold program to date. After lunch, and of course we don't have very long, we haven't had very long since we got into the space, at 2 o'clock we will be reconvening, and that steps into our policy conversation. To all those online, there are a few polls, as well as for those in the room, to please log on to the sites to get involved in. Continue the conversation over lunch, continue networking. It's been an absolute delight, and thank you all very much. A well-deserved break. Thank you.
Thank you.